may not have had an opportunity to interact with him, to share with them what the legacy of Professor Swaminathan was. So thank you very much. We waited till 10:30. I know all of you came in early at 10 because that was our plan, to get you here at 10 so you could have tea and you could have some nice India International Center snacks. 10:30 is the online YouTube link which is going to get live. So I didn't want to let them miss anything. Before we start the formal talks here, I would, of course, thank all the speakers, Dr. Mohapatra, Dr. Bansal, Dr. Sanjay Kumar, Dr. Rao, Ashwani, Pareek, all of them. We will play a 3-minute clip of, which was an NDTV award, which Dr. Swaminathan was the Living Legends Award that. And this clip has been picked up, and thank you, Soumya, for sharing it with us. And I took Soumya's permission late last night that can we play it here? Because the message in 3 minutes that Dr. Swaminathan has given is probably summarizing all that we're going to speak here today. And what better than having Professor Swaminathan himself here to give his voice and his message before we start. So I'll request them to kindly put the film on, and then we'll start this only.
His green revolution fed a hungry India and came to the rescue of millions of farmers. A miracle grower, a living legend, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan.
The reform must be such that we can improve the well-being of farmers and the productivity of land in such a way that we can produce more and more. Today, agriculture in the context of is a backbone of our livelihood security, of jobs, of income for 70% of our population. Respected Rashtrapati Ji and ladies and gentlemen, I think the 25th anniversary of NDTV occurs in a year when our country has witnessed a historic transition from what was called ship to mouth to right to food with homegrown food. Since I have been working in this field from 1947 onwards, I thought I will just take a minute to narrate the significance of this change. On August 15, 1947, the first page of our newspapers had the famous speech of Nehru, Our Tryst with Destiny. The second page, almost of all newspapers, warned about the impending food crisis and the food shortage in the country. From that time onwards, to have come to the stage of food security, legal right to food did not happen as a miracle. In fact, I recall in the 60s, many books were published by doomsday expert Paul and Ian Ehrlich, a very famous population expert. They said Indians have no future unless a thermonuclear bomb kills them. And another group of experts said Indians will die like sheep going to slaughterhouse, Paul and William Paddock. We decided that this will not happen. And that is how the scientific transformation with the appropriate political support has brought us to this condition where we are able to assure over 80% of our population a legal right to food. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's important to know this particular transition is probably the most significant in my view, not because I'm an agricultural scientist, because we know today many of the food security and national sovereignty are so much interrelated. We could not have helped Bangladesh if we didn't have food. We could not have helped Vietnam if we had no food. We could not have done Pokhran either during Mr. Indira Gandhi's time or Vajpayee's time if we are not self-sufficient in food, because you can withstand all other sanctions, but not sanction which denies you the food. Therefore, it's a historic transition. I congratulate Pranoy Roy having his 25th anniversary in the same year. But let me conclude by saying most of the reports now say the younger generation do not want to take agriculture because it's a very risky profession and low income and so on. But I think the future belongs to nations with grains and not guns. Guns you can purchase, but grains you cannot purchase. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And you will all agree with me that I think this was the right way for us to begin this wonderful function. I'll request Dr. Swaminathan, Mr. Shrivastava, Dr. Mohapatra to kindly come up and join me on the dais. Thank you very much. To begin, Mr. Shrivastava, can I request you kindly for your address?
Dr. Renu Swaroop, former Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. Dr. Swaminathan, Chairperson of MSSRF Foundation. Dr. Trilochan Mohapatra, former DG ICAR. Dignitaries in the audience, ladies and gentlemen. We are here to celebrate the legacy, the life of a great son of India, Dr. Monokambu Sambasivan Swaminathan, who is very rightly called father of India's Green Revolution. We have got another attachment with him for the reason that he was a member of IIC and he has spent a lot of time with us here. There are several senior members of IIC who remember his association with the center and contribution that he has made. We all know that he was a great geneticist and agricultural scientist. In his speech, you just heard the background in which this Green Revolution was started by Dr. Swaminathan and his entire team. I remember the year 1965-66. I was a school student in my native village in eastern UP. My area and so also the entire country was reeling under the impact of famine. Though our village is on the bank of Ganga River, the underground potentiality is tremendous. At a depth of 20-30 feet, water is available plenty. But in spite of all these resources being available to us, we could not, withstand the famine because we did not have the technology, we did not have wherewithal. Now, Dr. Swaminathan started this revolution, and this revolution took place not only in one part of India, but the entire India. He ensured that the right kind of innovation, the right of scientific technology is deployed, the high-yielding varieties of seeds are brought, the short duration crops are promoted. I still remember in our villages at that time, government also came out with a scheme to provide loans to the farmers to install IP sets. And of course, the scientists from agriculture universities, I would say all over the country, they got into the act inspired by Dr. Swaminathan. And finally, we achieved what was really something, unachievable at that point of time. And today it's really a matter of great pride for all of us that from a food deficient country, today we have emerged as a exporter of food. He basically believed in three basic principles. One was farmers empowerment, second agriculture sustainability, and third is regional adaptability. On all these, of course, in the business sessions, the experts will be speaking quite a bit. But I would only like to say that farmers empowerment was very much integral to the entire revolution that ultimately took place. This PACs, what we call primary agricultural cooperative societies, were set up all over the country. In those days, the banking access was not to the farmers, but through these cooperatives, that shortfall was somehow overcome. And these PACs, besides providing the credit facility, also ensured that the seeds and fertilizers also made available to the farmers. From the life of Dr. Swaminathan, we can learn a couple of things. One which I'd like to mention is that his message very clear is that scientific research must be farmer-centric. If you do not do that, then you're right in trouble. So we have followed the path guided by him, and today we have really achieved what we just know. And the second thing what is emphasized was that agriculture must be sustainable. He also laid emphasis on water conservation and soil conservation. Today, we are having some crisis building up because the way in which we are exploiting the underground water, even in the Indo-Gangetic belt where from I come, I find that the water table is depleting quite fast, and we are not doing much for replenishing the aquifers. So we must really, take these warning signals seriously and set the house in order, or else we can have problem in subsequent years. But the greatest, strength of Indian agriculture today, thanks to the leadership of Swaminathan, is that we have reached a stage where even if 2 or 3 continuous drought country faces, even then our food security is not going to be threatened. Friends, nowadays, a lot of new technologies have come which can be really deployed gainfully for, helping the farmers. The smartphone apps, the Internet of Things, what is called IoT, can help farmer monitor the soil moisture conditions, weather patterns can be, conveyed to them, and so also they could be guided as to how they can optimally utilize the fertilizer. Solar and renewable energy are also going to be of great help to the farmers. Government of India has already come out with a scheme called Kusum. I was, chairman of Karnataka Electricity Board, and that time I see that I recall those days that when it came to supply power to the agriculture, and incidentally, the down south states farmers consume more power because they have to lift water from very, very long depth, deep, from a long depth. In southern part of Karnataka, the water table has gone so low, 1,200 feet, that kind of thing. So naturally, power consumption goes up. 40% power supply, goes only for agriculture in states like Karnataka and others. So now this, when it came to power supply, we would be giving power when supply to the farmers when you can easily afford in the night hours, etc., which is inconvenient to them. But now under this Kusum scheme, basically the solarization of pump sets has taken place, and the solar energy which is available plenty during daytime can be harnessed. And I'm very happy to note that all over the country this scheme has really picked up very well. Agrobiotech and improved seed varieties are also very, very important. A lot of emphasis required to be given. Financial inclusion has started taking place massively for the farmers, which is a very good thing. The Jan Dhan accounts, what has been opened all over, has provided access to the banking to even smaller and marginal farmers. Kisan Samman Nidhi, which government has set up, and they give, the subsidy, I would say not subsidy, it's basically some cash assistance for farmers at a time when they need the most sowing time, etc. It's again very good thing to have. Kisan credit card has been introduced, which has again helped the farmers a big way. Crop insurance scheme. In addition to that, I would also like to add that the contract farming is also required to be promoted, because this is one farming where the farmer is absolutely insulated from any kind of risk. So this also perhaps has become the real hour. Friends, I would like to emphasize one thing, that despite what all we have achieved, the scope of, or the, I would say, the capacity of ours to provide irrigation to the land is limited. Even if you tap all your resources, the total area that can be irrigated cannot be more than 40%. 60% still is dependent upon the rains. And so therefore, we have to make use of that, and we have to promote millet continuously in a big way. This has already started, but much more is required to be done. And farmers must also be, educated about the water usage, the cropping patterns, etc. When I was implementing the Upper Krishna project across Krishna River in Karnataka, Almaty Dam, you might have all heard, it's part of that project. We completed those things. What we found was that the farmers are not, really following the cropping patterns prescribed for a particular command area. So the command, prescribes that only semi-dry crops can be cultivated, but merely they have been cultivating water-intensive crops. So these kind of indiscipline has to be curbed, and the farmers should not be treated as a holy cow. They must also be, reprimanded at times if they're really violating, which is not going to be in their own interest in long term, and country, of course, is going to suffer a bit. So some bit of not only education, but also some bit of discipline is also required. I would not like to speak much on this occasion, but I would only like to extend my hearty welcome to all the dignitaries on the dais, Dr. Renu Swaroop, Dr. Swaminathan, Dr. Trilochan Mohapatra, all the dignitaries present over here, all the members audience. And I'm really looking forward to a very, very fruitful deliberation during this course, during this dialogue. And maybe in the end, there'll be a lot of takeaway points for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shrivastava. And the outset, a very big thank you to the India International Center, to your leadership. We are missing the presence of the president because he's on travel today, Mr. Shyam Saran. Do convey our thanks to him as well. I think the entire audience here and all those who are joining us today, and those who are associated with this large family associated with Professor Swaminathan, are very, very pleased and thankful to the India International Center for having this dialogue series initiated. We hope we'll be able to continue this, and what better tribute than to do this to commemorate the centenary year. So thank you very much, Mr. Shrivastava. I would like to begin by thanking Dr. Soumya Swaminathan and Dr. Madhura Swaminathan, who will join us in a while. She's already joined us online. She's already on Zoom, but she'll speak with us virtually. Thank you very much for here, Dr. Mohapatra. Thank you so much for agreeing to deliver the leadership address. Our speakers who are going to give the leadership talks as well, Dr. Sanjay Kumar, Dr. Bansal, Dr. Rao, Srinivas Rao, Director IARI, Dr. Ashwani, Pareek. And a very big thank you to all of you for coming here today. You can see many of our seniors, Dr. Talwar, Professor Anupam Verma, and many others who I will probably have missed in the audience. But thank you so much for making all this effort to be here with us. And there would be a lot who've joined online, because we, as I said, have put this on the YouTube link. This first in the series, and I'm hoping the India International Center, and that's the message I got from Mr. Shrivastava, so I'm saying it, they're wanting to take this forward to spread the teachings of Professor Swaminathan, to have a platform where we can discuss maybe once a year, or in which there is so much in the teachings and the learnings of Professor Swaminathan that we would just want to spread it as much and keep this. He not only gave us the concept of transforming the green revolution to evergreen revolution, which today, as Shrivastava also pointed out, and we heard that from his strong speeches, something that's not momentary for the time. It's something that's going to be lasting and lasting over centuries if India has to progress, and which we are progressing at the speed at which we are looking at. Professor Swaminathan strongly believed, and as has been said, in the power of science, and the power of science to benefit the marginalized, to benefit the, and he was not only a vocal proponent for the empowerment of farmers, but also the gender empowerment, which was so close to him. And I think it was more about inclusive participation that he always spoke about. He always spoke about taking technologies to where they need to go, making sure that we've covered the last mile, making sure that it's reached the unreached. And he spread his he's in fact spent his entire life just trying to take that forward, to be able to not only take this to the next level, but to make sure that every student, every child, every farmer becomes a beneficiary of those new technologies that we take forward. And that, as I said, is really the purpose of this dialogue. That how do we share this? We're going to have, of course, this audience here, but through the YouTube, many others. And we hope that as we move on, Mr. Shrivastava, we can then actually document this and bring this out in the form of a document that then gets circulated to many more, that we'll take this forward. We all know Professor Swaminathan's special affection for younger students, and I can see students from ICAR and the universities here. This is really an opportunity for you. And I'm sure you will find this very interesting. Each of us who's been fortunate to interact with Professor Swaminathan, to spend time and get his teachings and learnings, have our own personal reflections. And I will share a couple of them with you in the next couple of minutes, not just because it's always a pleasure to share your personal reflections and time that you spent with Professor Swaminathan, but in each interaction, in each time that we met with him or worked with him, there was a learning in it. And I think it was important for us to see how we imbibe that and take that forward. For every student of agriculture and genetics, and I met some genetics department faculty and students when we were having tea outside, and I said, genetics is my subject as well. And I used to, as a young student, say it with a lot of pride, because we had stalwarts in genetics. We can see them around, but Professor Swaminathan, Professor A.K. Sharma, I mean, they're the ones that we, as students, grew up with, learning there in our textbooks. And you can imagine my joy when I was doing my PhD at the Forest Research Institute, and I'd sent in as a young GRF, you normally put in your abstract for the first international conference. And at that point of time, remember, we didn't have travel grants, we didn't have online ways of doing it. So the institute had to permit you to travel from Dehradun to Delhi also. You can imagine it went all the way. And all of us who know the government system and ICFRE systems, it was not easy to get a young GRF to come. And I came into Delhi to present my poster, which had been accepted by the 15th International Congress of Genetics. It was at the Ashoka Hotel, and I put up my poster. And I was standing there waiting for all these seniors to come so that I could explain it. And then somebody came and said, Professor Swaminathan is going to come in to these posters, so you all must be ready. That was my first physical interaction with Professor Swaminathan. And what better joy could I get than, it was not just, and for all of us who know him, you can imagine how he must have spoken to a young GRF who was presenting her poster for the first time. But what I got from him at that point of time, I think, is something that I've kept with me all through my career. The affection for youngers, the humility with which he used to speak, and the strong message that he gave in terms of how important the subject is. We heard it even there when he said the youth need to know that agriculture is important, science is important, and genetics is something which really helped him there. As I moved on in my career and I joined the Department of Biotechnology, and Aslam is here because Aslam and me joined at the same very time. It was 1989, and I still remember 30th August 1989. And the first assignment I was given by, and I just finished my postdoc research and come back working in the lab for so many years, getting into a government office where you see green note sheets in front of you and you have to look at science management. And Mr. Shrivastava totally would understand. The advisor who was in charge at that point of time, and all of us know, and he said, you don't have any time to waste. We are not very many. We are very few in the department. Tomorrow we are having a meeting of the tissue culture group, and you have to convene that meeting. And Professor Swaminathan is chairing that meeting. You can imagine I got cold feet. A meeting, first day in office. Professor Swaminathan is going to chair that meeting, and I was supposed to make the record notes and be with him to conduct that meeting. And we had all the experts of tissue culture there, Professor Khushu, and I mean, all of them. I can't name them. So it was like, I said, okay, fine, and I would move on. Believe me, it was a pleasure to be a part of that discussion. I thoroughly enjoyed myself in those 2-3 hours that we had. And Professor Swaminathan, for all of us who know him, was crisp, concise. He didn't like long meetings. He wanted decisions to be taken, summarized, and action to be taken forward. And I think it was that quick decision making, the quick actions that had to be done, and that message. And by the end of those 3 hours or 2.5 hours meeting, he'd already given us the decision that tissue culture has to move forward. And this was tissue culture for forestries, remember. We will set up tissue culture pilot plants, and he'd already seen 5 years down, and we set up 2, one at TERI and one at the NCL Pune. And he'd already seen beyond that and said, this is going to be a technology which we will have to set up technology parks. Professor Anupam Verma is here. He has spearheaded our whole tissue culture program in DBT to get the certifications done. We all know where it reached. But at that point of time in 1989, it was more of a concept. I think that roadmap that he gave us in less than 3 hours, again, gave us, and it was a huge learning for me. The next big challenge for me was, how do I make the record notes? How do I get it cleared from him? How do I get the draft moving? And I sent it to him. We didn't have computers. We didn't have emails at that time. We had computers, but those electric ones. We didn't have emails. So it was typed and sent by post to him. Must have taken 3 days to reach by post over there. And very quickly, I think within the next 3 days, it came back to me. With his very precise handwriting, he had made small edits on it. But at the end of it, he put a little message and said, very well drafted notes. Believe me, all of you, and believe me, Soumya, I think that's what gave me the encouragement that took me ahead. The first assignment I had within the department and the encouragement. So that was Professor Swaminathan, how he would encourage and move ahead. Every interaction that I had with him subsequently was the same. His message was very clear, as I said, whatever you do, whatever you take forward, you have to ensure that technologies reach the unreached. And that's really the title that we put in over here, Reaching the Unreached. Because his point was, you're not going to pick up or take technologies. He was chairing our National Bioresource Development Board, which was set up by DBT. His main message was, and I remember interacting with him, how do we deal with rural communities? How do we take our bioresource technologies to rural communities, to students? And in one of those interactions, he said, if you want this message to continue as the country grows and progresses, you have to make sure that the youth get involved in it, they get encouraged into it. And that actually was the seed that he had sown for us to set up what we, within DBT, and all my DBT colleagues will recall, we had started what we call the DNA clubs. The Department of Biotechnology Natural Resource Awareness Clubs. We had more than 1 lakh students who across the country in different seats, and MSSRF had played a very important role. Many universities, many institutes, IARI, all of them, they use their extension services, and in schools, in states and in remote areas, we set up these where from class 6 to class 9, we involved the KVKs and we got these students developing. That is how the message went. So as I said, for every interaction with him, it was a learning that we would have as to how do we move ahead. I think it is also important to remember that it was not just one one group that Professor Swaminathan would like to see. He would not just like to see the empowerment happening at the youth or the gender level. I think what was important for him was, how do we make sure that we keep a balance between what the farmers' needs are? So it's a bottom up and a top driven approach. How do we take our new technologies? Because when we keep doing a lot of research, and I see a lot of ICR scientists here and others here and Director IARI, there's huge lot of research that we keep doing within our, whether it's biotech or whether it's our gene environment groups, or I do recall in the CSIR system, Sanjay at IHBT, you had brought out so many new technologies, but they don't have to be restricted to the lab. They have to actually move in. And I think it was that aspect that he conveyed to us, and we moved ahead. It was also the whole strategy that he gave us as a bioresource roadmap for us in the Department of Biotechnology, where the whole area of technology-driven, women-led enterprises need to be given a special push. And I think that's, again, a message that we got. And I have to acknowledge here that if today our women entrepreneurs and our women startups have got a special impetus, it's because the first Golden Jubilee Biotech Park was started by Professor Swaminathan at Chennai in the Golden Jubilee year of the country's independence. I think it was his knack of being an able or a wonderful, excellent scientist and one of the most able administrators. He knew how to connect with the state government, not easy. And Soumya, you know how difficult it is to connect with state governments, all of you all know, but getting the land from them, getting the building inaugurated, Tamil Nadu government put in their share while the central government had put in. We all know that the Golden Jubilee Biotech Park today is, and I was very, very pleased to be able to work with him for that particular concept that we started. I can go on, and I can't. I'm seeing the clock is at 11 and I need to stop because we have many other who will come up with a lot that we will be able to share. But I think my visits to Chennai were never complete till I went and paid my respect to Professor Swaminathan in his office. And the last visit that I did before we had a lockdown for COVID, I always remember that and cherish that, was on 4th of March 2020. We had a lockdown 22nd of March. And I was there and I went and met him in his office. And as usual, he sort of checked with me as to what are the new technologies. I was by that time the secretary of the biotechnology department. He wanted to know what new initiatives we've taken. And he was particularly very pleased that we had started 2 major initiatives. And Aslam, my colleague, was responsible for one of the major ones, and that is the Biotech Kisan Hubs. And that is really what you said, Mr. Shrivastava, understanding the needs of the farmers and taking technology to the farmers. And that's what the Biotech Kisan Hubs do today. And of course, his key aspect of the genetic gardens. And Soumya, thanks to you and the MSSRF, he's set up these whole genetic gardens across. And that was his last message that which I carry with me, which came in that face-to-face meeting, was he clearly said, we need to push and accelerate enabling policies. We need to streamline our processes so that we facilitate the advancement of new technology, the scale up of this technology, but most importantly, the deployment of these technologies. That was really the last message I carried. Of course, I did get an opportunity to meet him later, just a couple of months before we lost him, when I'd gone for the board meeting to Chennai. But I think that is really the message that we all had. So today we have special speakers with us. As I've acknowledged all their presence, thank you all for being with us. And we heard a very strong message from Dr. Swaminathan in this thing, in which he said it's not just about, we can't fight it just with guns, but it's all about grains. But I would also like to conclude with a quote that Swaminathan had said, and I will, and because it's not only agriculture, science, research, getting together to spread this message, but I think the message that he gave, and we have that diversity in this room, and I will end with that quote of Professor Swaminathan, where he said, agriculture is not just about farming. It involves science, economics, sociology, and many other disciplines. So for the young youth, you don't have to be just an agriculture scientist to make sure that you take agriculture and his teachings ahead. You could be any field where you contribute to this. So thank you all very much for being with us. I hope you enjoy the day today. After this inaugural address, we will have talks by our 4 speakers subsequently. And then at the end, we are hoping, I know it's going to be difficult for every speaker to cut their time because I haven't cut my own time, but we will have to do that. So we can put in about a couple of minutes at the end of the day for an interaction before we break for lunch. So thank you all very much. I will request Madhura to kindly come on. So can we get Madhura online, please, for her remarks, and then Soumya followed by yours. So if we could get Dr. Madhura Swaminathan to come in. Yes, thank you very much, Madhura, and over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. And first, my apologies for not being there in person. Shri Srivastava ji, Dr. Renu Swaroop, who has really been behind this whole idea, Dr. Mohapatra, Dr. Soumya, and then so many distinguished speakers and guests in the audience. So I will help. I hope you can hear me. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay.
You're audible.
So I would like to, I'm an economic statistician. I work at the Indian Statistical Institute. And although my father was not an economist, recently someone is writing biographies of famous economists in India, and they said they have to include him because of what Dr. Renu Swaroop said, the influence on economic policy. But I would like to talk about something for a few minutes today, and that has already been mentioned, and that is his concern for gender equality. You know, women make up half the world. It's not that we are waiting to be given something. I think women have to be treated equally and in all spheres of the economy, including in agriculture, in work participation. And some of you may not know, but the first time that women in farming was taken up as an issue and discussed was at a conference he organized in 1985 when he was the Director General of the International Rice Research Institute. And today, every CGIAR institute has a gender platform. We're always hearing about this, but we know, he used to say women domesticated agriculture, we know that. But somehow over time, the contribution of women became invisible. It did not, in my view, decline, but it became invisible. And that is what I'd like to take a few minutes to speak on, because we have, as was mentioned, so many young people. And let me give my conclusion right in the beginning, and then I'll take a few minutes to explain it. I think we have to learn truth from facts. That is the scientific method. We are constantly learning, challenging, questioning what we know, and moving ahead. But in order to start that process, we need data, we need information. And I think the biggest problem, and this is not just in India, it's a worldwide problem. So I'm not saying India, but we are talking here in India. We need to do something, as all of us who are concerned about Indian development, is the lack of gender disaggregated data. So that is my plea today to all those of you who are already in major leadership positions and to the young, that whatever area you go into, whatever discipline you take, and I'd just like to give a few examples from India. You know, India has led the world in many things. One of the things it led the world in other than the food security, is the statistical survey system that we have. Crop cutting experiments started in the 1940s. We have the cost of cultivation surveys that are done every year, I think in about 17 to 20 states for over 20 crops. But we never, and this is the basis for the calculation of cost A2, B2, C2, the MSP, and all that. And this cost of cultivation survey collects data on the amount of labor deployed on farming. And we know that there's been a decline in labor use with mechanization. but we never hear about whether that labor use was by men or women. In this case, I know the data are collected, but they are not put out in the public domain. In other areas, maybe the data are not even collected. But this gives us a very, very misleading picture. Now, I'm going to talk about just one aspect for a couple of minutes, which is women in agriculture or women workers in agriculture. We know that more and more men are migrating in search of better jobs to the cities. Women were always in agriculture, but now they're increasingly in agriculture. But we don't know how many. Our data on women's work participation in agriculture, believe me, although our statistical system is good, but still I don't believe this data. And why don't I believe these data? Because it's a question of how you ask women whether they're working. It's a definitional question. It's a question of how the questionnaire is designed, the methodology used. When you go to a village and you ask a woman, what were you doing? She said, bas ghar ka kaam, she doesn't see a separation between her work at home and her work in the field, which is close by. And we now have new methods like what is called a time use survey, which is asking what you did over the last 24 hours. And we have done this in villages in Karnataka. We say from the time you woke up and you made coffee for the family, you fed the children, and you find that over the day, no woman was working less than a 60-hour week. And I'm talking about economic work. I'm not talking about childcare, cooking, elderly care. There's so many other tasks that women do, which are also work, but I'm talking about economic work. So if you ask me, every woman in rural India is a worker. Everyone who has a cow or buffalo is spending at least 2 hours a day feeding that animal, cleaning the cow shed, bathing, milking. If there's a tiny plot of land, whether it is a homestead or other, a woman is participating in work. But we don't have these figures, we don't have these statistics. And because of this, because it's not in our data, it doesn't come into our policy, it doesn't come into our understanding, into our theory on what needs to be done. So I'm going to try and save some time because I'm not here and those who are there will want to spend more time. So I think that this is one thing that I learned from him, that whatever the issue we were discussing, it is not a question of writing a whole book and then adding one chapter on gender. Though he was the first one to add a chapter on women in the in the 8th five-year plan, I think, when he was in the Planning Commission. So while we do that, for you young people, and I'm sure there are many women, I think there are more women now in agricultural science, in economics, in many of these disciplines, though not in statistics, unfortunately, is that it's not a question of adding a chapter on women or adding a section on women, but as Dr. Renu Swaroop said, biotech park, we have to give emphasis to women, but in every sphere of development and in every area of data collection, whether it's a cost of cultivation survey, or whether it's a labor force survey, or whether it's a household income survey, whether it's administrative records, we have to ensure that we are counting women, because I think that's the only way the women will be visible, and then we can take that next step to ensure women's equality. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Madhura. Thank you so much. This is really a very strong message you've given, and thank you for joining us online despite your there. But I hope you will be able to stay with us for as much time as you can. I will like to request Dr. Soumya Swaminathan for her kind remarks and message and address. Thank you, Dr. Soumya, for joining us in person, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Renu. Good morning to all the dignitaries here. It's really overwhelming to see the turnout and the response to this program. Thank you very much, Shrivastava ji, for having organized it, and to Dr. Shyam Saran ji also. And I think, the titling of the leadership dialogue is also very nice, because I think that's what we need now. We need, and there are a lot of young people here in the room. And so it's very important that we build the next generation of leaders. I often hear people saying that we need somebody like Dr. M.S. Swaminathan to speak on the issue of GMO or some other issue that comes up. And these are all science-based decisions, you see. So the scientists must have a strong voice in policy making. I believe that that's very true. And unless we have science-based policies, then we don't have really a rational way of moving. So this is not just in agriculture, but really across all departments. And Madhura also spoke about the importance of statistics, national surveys, and basing and adapting our programs and policies to address those needs and gaps, find out what is working well, what is not working so well, and so on. So one of the things that, my father always believed in was that you have to be open-minded, you have to keep yourself updated, you have to listen to all points of view. So, and when he was asked about technology, he always used to say we should not be a slave of technology and use it for the sake of technology, but it should be used to meet a particular need or a gap that has been identified. So just because we have artificial intelligence today, it doesn't mean that everything now we have to put AI, because we have to also remember that AI is a hugely energy consuming technology. And so while all of us speak about AI all the time, we're actually increasing our carbon footprint tremendously by bringing in AI. So it has to be brought in strategically. It has to be brought in where it can have, we can make a quantum jump, just like mobile technology enabled a quantum leap. And the fact that financial services today have been, the ease of accessing financial services, everybody now, from the vegetable seller, to the top corporate executives use their phones to do your transactions. That kind of transformation technology can bring, and but it's always a combination of technology and public policy. And that was, again, one of the lessons that he used to repeat quite often, that a revolution happens, and the green revolution happened because of a combination of the right technologies at that time, which included the yielding varieties, but also all the other inputs. The public policy and the political support for those policies. There was a risk involved at that time in taking those decisions, but that those decisions were made at the highest level, knowing that there was a bigger cause, and that unless that risk was taken, we may not be able to really come out of the issues of that time. So today we have many more technologies, and the speed at which new technologies are coming is also increased. I think every decade, we see tremendous jump, and today we can't even grasp the scale of technologies that we have. AI is something which is every day it is giving us so many new insights. But how do we use it wisely to solve the problems that we actually have? And beginning with data is very good, because AI also cannot work unless you have data. So, as you know, the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation was set up in 1988 after he returned from the Philippines, and with the proceedings of the first World Food Prize that he had received, and that prize and all the other prize earnings that he put into the foundation, including whatever land was owned by the family and came to his side, the coffee plantations in Wayanad and so on, were all donated to the foundation so that research could take place. And some of that early work that was done in the late 80s and early 90s has laid the foundation for many policies and national programs, whether it is mangrove conservation, integrated coastal development, whether it's a biodiversity laws that we have in the country today, where I think we were the first ones to really articulate the access and benefit sharing provisions in our own laws. And similarly, I'm sure that Dr. Mohapatra will talk about the, Plant Varieties Protection Act, and why he insisted that it should not be only the breeders, but the farmers who also deserve that protection. and ensured on the global stage also that is done. So going forward, Madhura was chairing the foundation for 10 years, and then I took over as chairperson in 2023. Our vision is to continue that the legacy and to form that science for society was what he had said when he created the foundation, and the fact that it is pro-woman, pro-farmer, pro-nature, and pro-poor. So all our programs try to link communities with new science and technology, both ways, taking the new technologies to the field to see how they can be used, how they can be incorporated, particularly to benefit women farmers, to reduce drudgery, to improve their own health and nutrition, and vice versa, taking the farmers' voices and bringing them to the policy-making table and articulating the real issues that they are facing, so that, again, government programs can be informed by the realities on the ground. So I think we are in a very critical or a nice niche role where we're able to connect high-level policy-making with actually the ground-level voices. So I would also like to invite all of you to the conference that is going to be held to commemorate the centenary. So August 7th would have been his 100th birth anniversary. And so the conference is titled Towards an Evergreen Revolution, a pathway to biohappiness. He coined many words, as you know, many of them starting with the word bio, bioshield, bio-software. So the word for bio inputs into soil was, he used to call it as bio-software. Bio-villages. Biohappiness was one of them, which I read the book. It was written in 2011. It was called In Search of Biohappiness. And it was another edition came out in 2014, but it was not widely available. So what we've done now is we've reprinted it in an Indian edition. It will be available at a very nominal price. And the book actually talks about what is biohappiness. And he used to say that, we talk about our biodiversity hotspots. India, as you know, is one of the mega biodiverse countries in the world. Despite the fact we have only 2% of the land area, we have something like 8% of global biodiversity. And it's also a site of origin of many of the crops. Though over a period of time, we are losing agrobiodiversity extremely fast. In fact, when I speak to some of the principal chief conservator of forests, they worry more about agrobiodiversity than wild biodiversity. And in the Northeast in particular, and the Western Ghats, they are really under pressure. He used to say, let's convert these biodiversity hotspots into happy spots. Why should the people who are living there with such rich natural resource abundance not be happy? That's because we have not harnessed what there is in nature for the human well-being. So I think it's high time that, we really start thinking about biodiversity for human well-being, agriculture also for human health and well-being. And I was very happy yesterday when the DG ICAR, Dr. Jat, was saying to me that for him, the priority is agriculture and health. And that was music to my ears, because agriculture ultimately is, what is it for? It's to feed us and to keep us healthy, not just to feed empty calories into our stomachs, but to give us good, nutritious food so that each Indian and everybody on this planet, in fact, can be healthy and have access to a nutritious diet. So I think with that kind of a goal, if ICAR is going to have that goal, that how do we feed 1.4 or 1.5 billion Indians with healthy food, and we can link that to the biodiversity and natural resources that exist in the country, then I think we can certainly enter into that era of biohappiness. So I wish to invite all of you. Our website has all the details of the conference. We've got an excellent scientific lineup of national, international speakers. The Prime Minister will inaugurate it on August 7th in the morning. And please do register and attend if possible. And hopefully that will lead to a call to action coming out at the end of the conference for the pathway to biohappiness and what can India do. And obviously then we think about the practical aspects of what policies and enabling mechanisms that we will need to put together. So thank you all very much for this opportunity. And once again, many thanks to IIC for initiating this leadership dialogue. And I hope that if it's going to be a regular feature, that we'll be able to focus on different topics and really address many of the things I'm sure which are going to come out in the rest of the morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Soumya, and thank you so much for this. So we all have now reached the stage where I'm very pleased to invite Dr. Trilochan Mohapatra, who kindly consented to give the leadership dialogue address. And let me put this right here once, that all our speakers today, Dr. Mohapatra and all the other 4 speakers, it was just a phone call to them, and I think promptly, without even a minute's hesitation, they all said, yes, we will be there. So that's thank you all so much. I know each one of you has a busy schedule, but thank you. Dr. Mohapatra, who was the former secretary there and DG ICAR, and is currently the chairman of the Plant Variety Protection Authority. Thank you so much. And he's going to give his, so it's all yours, Dr. Mohapatra. We're waiting to hear you. Maybe we'll move down, Mr. Shrivastava, so we can see. No, we won't be able to see your presentation then.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Very good morning to each one of you, Dr. Renu, Dr. Soumya, Shrivastava, many dignitaries present here. It's always a pleasure to be here, and that too in a program organized by Dr. Renu Swaroop. Has been a wonderful colleague, friend, and always nice to listen to her as well. And also to have Dr. Soumya herself and also Dr. Madhura in the program and listen to them to speak about Professor Swaminathan. I can tell you it's so difficult to talk about him. Why? What to speak actually? He has covered everything actually. If you say Evergreen Revolution, what to leave and what not to speak and what not to speak actually. It's very tough, very difficult. In fact, when I was listening to Srivastava to start with this morning, he went to energy. And in fact, Professor Swaminathan has talked about it in his articles, There's a compilation on, of Evergreen Revolution book, and then you will see, everything he talks about. So very difficult to cover. And while I was, planning, time is very limiting. So I chose about 30 slides because it's about 30 minutes. But, so much left to be spoken about. And so obviously, it's a very tough task to talk about what Professor Swaminathan thought about with regard to, Evergreen Revolution. And of course, what was spoken, whether it is gender, woman, or it is water management, of course, genetic improvement, primarily that was his focus area of specialization, whether it is extension, and woman, involvement in the field, both, in extension and otherwise, the risk management, which was mentioned, and everything he talks about. And I was going through his paper, which he published in 2006, entitled Evergreen Revolution in crop science. And you'll see there he talks about precision agriculture in 2006. So when you talk about precision agriculture, in fact, you go back in time, and then when he used to talk about Evergreen Revolution in the 90s, you see the reflection of all that which he was talking in what he describes in the crop science paper in 2006. So it's such a kind of a vast arena to really talk about, and I will only touch upon some of those points, trying to cover some aspects. Again, not all aspects. And again, in the next session, you'll hear more about technology and how to reach the unreached, as Dr. Renu said. And so without taking any more time, it's already 11:30, I believe. So from green revolution to an evergreen revolution. And of course, this you have heard in the short video And it went viral at that point in time when he spoke about this. And even today, you will find it's still viral. Everyone listens to this particular statement. And the kind of tribute, the amount of tribute, every individual in this country and the world, if start paying tribute, it will fall short of what he has contributed. And given the importance of all that, not only in India, globally, and partly documented. And if you read his articles, see the depth and the breadth of the coverage. Difficult to imagine how his thought process would be running while he would be writing all those. And that's the reason why he was respected as a global figure, and truly a legend, and unparalleled kind of leadership he provided to India, brought green revolution, and so forcefully put forth his views on Evergreen revolution. Today we talk about regenerative agriculture and many other things related to that. But we did not. In fact, I said this when we were actually discussing about him when he passed away, that we have not really capitalized on his thought. The country has not really capitalized on his thoughts as much it was required. And so these discussions again, even if we spend the whole day or even the whole seminar, what Dr. Soumya was telling, that will also fall short of discussing what he talked about. Taking forward his thoughts and his legacy is a real challenge. But anyway, so I'll be very briefly covering. And, Dr. Soumya said, and, we certainly are grateful to him, from ship to mouth life to a situation where we are self-sufficient. So we have enough to feed and free food through this act to more than 80 crore people. Unthinkable. So that was possible because of the technology, because of the revolution in the form of green revolution, and subsequently taking forward the legacy of green revolution and implementing all those which he in fact highlighted during those days. So from shortage to surplus, what he also mentioned in the NDTV talk, that how it was brought about. He didn't elaborate. And if you go through his writings, he writes in great detail and how he was involved in actually imbibing that very idea of capitalizing on semi-dwarfs. It's not just getting some seeds from summit through Borlag and disseminating those seeds. In fact, he conceived the idea, taking the publication, discussing with the Japanese scientists that whether the semi-dwarf wheat works there and how it works in the US. So it's all exploratory kind of analysis, a detailed analysis it did before, in fact, seeds reached Indian soil. And before they were multiplied and subsequently, of course, utilized in hybridization program and package of practices were defined. So it was his thought process which defined green revolution those times at that point in time. So that is the point which need to be really considered. And this is what a visionary leader he was. In fact, that vision, everybody talks about some new things, but he continuously brought new ideas and thoughts. So truly a visionary leader. And these two genes he knew very well. In fact, when he came back to India and went to CRRI Cuttack to work on rice, in fact, that semi-dwarf and fertilizer responsive traits, they were very much in his mind. In fact, he worked on those while he was involved in Indica Japonica hybridization. Wanted to make semi-dwarf types, fertilizer responsive types, It was not very successful, but few good lines came out of that particular work which he was involved in, and subsequently moved to IRI, and then rest is history. All we describe how green revolution happened, and obviously, the thought process, was very much there when he was first, working as a research fellow at Central Rice Research Institute, Cuttack. So these two genes and what happened and how they were mainstreamed in the breeding programs, and then introductions initially and subsequently, capitalizing on those to have green revolution. And this we must know, and everybody, many of us know, and but this need to be really spoken about. This was spoken. The very phrase "green revolution" was coined by William S. Govt. He was administrator in USAID. Of course, now it is all dismantled, but those days, and the funding through USAID has gone to many countries, and that was also the point when it happened. So he first used, and that was March 8, 1968. That you should underline and remember. And then in a particular society meeting, while he was addressing, he spoke about this. What is green revolution? In fact, he described all that happened during 1967 because of wheat seeds which were introduced from cement, and the yield advantage that was provided and the production increase that happened. That he was describing in India, in Pakistan, in Turkey, and subsequently also he described the rice revolution in Philippines. And at the end of that, he speaks about that these and other developments in the field of agriculture contain the makings of a new revolution. It is not a violet red revolution like that of Soviets, nor is it a white revolution like that of Shah of Iran. I call it the green revolution. So that was 1968. Just it was happening in India, and 1-2 years of yield advantage and production increase, and a lot more. India was still importing, in fact, and continued to import another 2-3 years. And it happened, they stopped importing wheat in 70s. And in between, there was some production increase and then again drop, and then it happens always. It happened recently in pulses also. So, but then what is important here is, while this is happening, in January, in the Indian Science Congress, which happened in Banaras, Professor M.S. Swaminathan gave the clarion call that what can go wrong with this so-called revolution. The term was not coined, but he was very critical of the exploitative nature of the technology, the way the farmers are exploiting it, in terms of the water use, in terms of fertilizer use, in terms of pesticide use, the detailed discussion. And elaborately, he pointed out the danger of adopting mindlessly this technology. So the negatives he visualized in January before the term Green Revolution was coined. In fact, subsequently, we keep criticizing Green Revolution, but we all know the positives of Green Revolution. In fact, in National Academy of Agriculture Research Management, when I was undergoing, after my first appointment as a scientist, there were a lot of criticism which was presented. And I was the only person who stood up and I said, don't at least present some positives of Green Revolution. Don't present all negatives. It has saved us. So we must first point out that how we have been saved from ship to mouth to, kind of self-sufficiency. So anyway, so the point is that even though the revolution was happening, but as a real visionary, he was apprehending something, that something might go wrong with the technology, and always, as it happened with, the bombs, we keep telling, and the AI technology we see today, mention was made that AI can revolutionize every field, and so also in agriculture. And but the dangers of using technology would be always there. And so that is what was the point. But then throughout 90s, 1990s, he kept on insisting on Evergreen Revolution. Starting from 1990, in fact, and in a Hindu article which was published in 1995, describes how it is to be done. And subsequently, many articles he published that different components of Evergreen Revolution and how it should be and what way it should be implemented and all that in details, in fact, he presented. So there are, many dimensions to what he spoke about. In fact, first statement is enhancement of productivity in perpetuity without associated ecological harm. But then in another, expression which he, in fact, given, the Green Revolution should become an evergreen revolution rooted in the principles of ecology, economics, and gender and social equity. Gender equity as well as social equity. In fact, today, when we talk about the farming system perspective globally, and it talk about sustainable agriculture, in fact, Professor Swaminathan talked about it in his own language in the form of Evergreen Revolution starting from 1990s. So though credit goes to, today we talk about regenerative agriculture, and we always very happy to pick words which are spoken outside India rather than spoken in India. So this is what I have seen, because we don't really respect our own people as much as we respect others. And this is what the kind of irony in this country. And so I mentioned this earlier in one of the meetings when we were praising Professor Swaminathan. But what he spoke about, we don't really bother about and try to implement it as it is spoken and respect it. That is what is the problem is, and I believe this is the message I would like to give. That if we can term this so-called various forms of modifications that we implement today, as Evergreen Revolution, policy, vision, and program, that would be a tribute to Professor Swaminathan, in years to come, and as we go along. So because everything has talked about. When you talk of sustainable agriculture, there are three pillars globally talked about today. And he talked about in 1990s that the ecological principles, the environment and ecology aspect, the equity aspect, the gender and equity aspect, the social aspect of it, and economic aspect. There are three pillars of sustainability: the economic, the social, and environmental. That's what he talks about here. So long back. So that's what is the point. And where we have actually faltered, or in the context of the Evergreen Revolution that Professor Swaminathan talked about and described so eloquently, elaborately in his writings. We have been increasing food production, whether it is food grains, pulses, oil seeds. We are still falling short of our requirements with regard to oil seeds and pulses. Still striving to produce more. So there are deficiencies, huge deficiencies still, particularly with edible oil. But we have done fairly well and increased many times the horticulture production, for instance, 14 times, the way we are growing, more than 4% growth, and milk and fish and so on and so forth. And so we have certainly increased the food production. That's the reason why we are able to feed 1.4 billion plus people and not importing food grains as we were doing, those days in 1950s and 60s. So fairly, good progress, and we have not really faltered. And a little bit of more analysis, we did. Dr. O.P. Yadav, who was director of Kazari Jodhpur, and we published a paper in Current Science, and it did the analysis and how we really carried forward the legacy of Professor Swaminathan. During Green Revolution phase, we increased, productivity, and there was increase in production, and import substitution happened, and self-sufficiency was brought about, and all this happened, and that is what is indicated here. The first 17 years period was you will see 4 pages, 50 to 66, 67 to 83. That's the Green Revolution phase. And 84 to 2000, 2001 to 2017. That was published in 2019. We have now added another 7-8 years and analyzed where we really stand and how much we could increase in terms of kg per hectare per year and different crops. And this is wheat. And you can see before Green Revolution phase, 11.6, and then 41 during Green Revolution phase, and 53, the next phase, and subsequently there was a little drop. So we did fairly well, during post-Green Revolution phase, and that's the reason why we have plenty, and we have difficulty, in storage. We don't have enough space because our yield advantage increase has happened continuously. We have been exploring, and fairly we have done well, and so also. In case of rice, in fact, you can see where before Green Revolution what happened, and during Green Revolution and post Green Revolution, 2 phases, and how fairly kind of situation exists there, and what all contributed to this development in terms of technology. That will be discussion. And this technology not only was implemented, but has gone to field. Otherwise, this kind of production gains would not have happened. And today, more than 130 million tons of rice, and 110 million tons of wheat, more than close to 350 million tons of food grain, and more than 360 million tons of horticulture. It not have happened actually. Technology has gone to field. And we don't have to be complacent because we have many challenges. I'm not going to really describe everything, but just to highlight, and this is pearl millet, very, very significant gains we had, in pearl millet. And because of hybrid technology and, other kind of technologies which were implemented, and you can see the gains, in post-Green Revolution phase. And tremendous, kind of progress we made, and taking the legacy of Professor Swaminathan forward. But, and this is what, when we added the, another 8 years post 2017, 6 to 7 years rather we added, and you can see little improvement in the, phase 2001 to 2022. And that analysis, you can see how good we have been able to do in terms of kg per hectare per year, the yield added in these particular crops, and fairly a good progress, over the years. And so that is a very, very important. And this is another the slide which we got from the Director, National Institute of Agriculture Policy Research. For in these different phases, what is the annual incremental production different food grains? Very, very interesting that, food grain production 2066, 67 to 79, 80, during the Green Revolution phase, how much we are adding to production in terms of food grains, in terms of fruits and vegetables, in terms of milk and other items. And during 80, 81 to 81, 90, per year, how much we are adding. And you can see 2014-15 to 24-25, how much we have added per year. Very, very significantly. That means we have progressed fairly well, capitalizing on the technology, and which was introduced those days and subsequently utilized in breeding programs. The kind of material in rice in the form of varieties which were introduced. Those genes were introduced basically in the form of varieties, and we could succeed. And you can see the last 10 years, 2004, 14, 15 to 24, 25, and per year, how much we have been adding. Not just food grains, even in fruits and horticulture, and milk and marine products, and in terms of inland fishery, poultry particularly, the meat and egg, and how much we have added. And of course, the investment. Investment is still falling short of requirements, and the return on investment is quite high, but the investment is still lagging behind. Agriculture GDP, the percentage of that, about 0.4, 0.5% is being utilized in agri R&D, and a requirement is about 1%. So that is what requirement, but still, the progress is there. So that means, all these have been possible. One analysis I can provide before you at how we have been able to really do this for food grains, for instance. In terms of varietal development, you can see 2014 to 2024. In terms of varieties, and these new varieties going to the field, because the policy decision that the old varieties, the seeds would not be produced. The seeds should not be produced for old varieties. So only new varieties should go to the field. So the indenting would happen for the new varieties only. 10-year-old varieties would not go to the field. So that's the kind of policy decision which was taken. So largely, and very importantly, the climate resilient varieties. The climate resilient varieties, the climate is changing. Otherwise, how do you sustain production? Professor Swaminathan talked about ecology and environment. You have to take care of that. But we have not really taken care to the extent it is required. But this is one aspect, the climate resilient varieties. And that is what you see that we have been able to really develop, and using all technologies, and there will be discussion, market assisted selection, this and that, all have been used. And very importantly, Professor Swaminathan talked about equity and gender. The women health, more than 50% of women are anemic in this country, not just because of iron deficiency, but also protein deficiency, malnutrition happening in this country, widespread. And so also the child malnutrition. Professor Swaminathan used to talk about hidden hunger and protein malnutrition. When Dr. Soumya was DG ICMR, we were discussing about this and creating villages for nutrition. So Nutri villages. We planned something, and he left, and subsequently, something was done. Dr. Renu, also, contributed to this from DBT, and there were some villages, but we adopted 75 villages to, through our Women in Agriculture program. And, pushing technology, biofortified crops, and nutrition sensitive programs through, schools and so on and so forth, particularly girl children, focusing on them. So a lot of things were done. So, and Nutri gardens, which were promoted. Madam Smriti Irani was Women and Child Development Minister. We're trying to push them. So a whole lot of things, and Professor Swaminathan elaborately, eloquently talked about. You can't just talk in isolation, evergreen revolution with regard to yield advantage and yield improvement. If it happens, it will be only a partial achievement, but you have to go beyond that. And that's what Professor Swaminathan has described in many of his papers, that how do we actually enable evergreen revolution in this country. And society, and he talked about equity, as I mentioned, and society at large, and how can we provide the advantage to them. So biofortified crop varieties, development and promotion. And this is one example of climate resilient varieties, that both submergence tolerance and drought tolerance, and marker assisted selection, the technology being used to introduce genes. Otherwise, it is so difficult to put these genes. Earlier, we were doing something, but we did not know what is really happening. The plant breeding was art largely, and today it is more of science. And you know what you are doing, and that is what has been done, and gone to field. 14 days, 15 days of submergence being tolerated. Surna Sabwan, another example. And drought tolerance. And that's the reason why we are increasing yield and increasing production despite climate change, despite vagaries of nature. It's not that famines are not there. You just imagine the frequency of famines before 1950, for instance. And what is the frequency of famines now after 1950? So post-grain revolution, we have been able to safeguard the yield. So yield per se is important, the potential is important, but how do you really safeguard against the vagaries of nature, the climate change? So this is what is very, very important. And Professor Swaminathan in his paper also has described all this. And he talks about in his crop science paper, the wheat, and how different genes for rust resistance have been deployed very systematically. So systematic gene deployment by way of pyramiding genes for different rusts in wheat, we have been able to sustain this yield advantage in wheat over a period of time. The global community is worried, but India did not. For variety of rusts which were happening globally, but we took our material, put in the hotspots and identified the resistant lines and utilized in this country. So it's going to be 12 o'clock. I don't want to really take more time, but a lot more to talk about. And Professor Swaminathan talked about this, protein malnutrition. So we at Cuttack, developed these high protein lines. Where from it came? Professor Swaminathan was involved at those days, was telling you should collect germplasm. One set of collection was called Assam rice collection, those days. And Assam rice collection, one of that collection, 10075, ARC 10075 had 16% protein. Can you imagine? Rice has 6 to 7% protein ordinarily, not more than 7%. 16% protein. And that trait was transferred to the high-yielding variety background and Swarna and Navin, and today you have 10% protein varieties. All India trials and release and taking time and 3 years of testing and releasing for multiple states. So all these are part of the game. It takes time. That's the reason why it took time. So that is what is very, very important, and mainstreaming and utilizing, deploying technology, and also at the same time capitalizing on biodiversity, which is existing but underutilized, unutilized. We have very little, less than 5% utilized. And this is now today, when I was DG ICAR, there were only 2-3 varieties. And I told Prime Minister Saab that we are focusing on this. And during my period of 6.5 years, we developed about more than 80 varieties. And today it has gone up to 171. So what I'm telling, that with focus, you should be able to do this. Those days during Green Revolution era, we were focusing on production, productivity, because we needed more to fill the hungry bellies. And today we need to address malnutrition. And these are the kind of things which are happening for protein, for iron, for zinc, provitamin A, and a lot of other things. So amino acids like tryptophan, lysine, and so on and so forth in different crops, and removing the anti-nutritional factors. So this is what is actually the focus, and that is how we have to move forward to take forward this legacy of Professor Swaminathan in regard to Evergreen Revolution. And Green Revolution, Evergreen Revolution would not be happening unless we address malnutrition and address social equity, address gender equity, because as I said, the children and women, the disadvantaged, most disadvantaged in the society with regard to nutrition. And this is where we have to really come in and address. And this is where we have to do. Germplasm is plenty globally. I'll not describe this in India, also in our community seed banks. The community seed banks have plenty of this germplasm. We are yet to really utilize them. Less than 5% of germplasm in our gene banks have been utilized in breeding programs. And Professor Swaminathan used to, pioneer this area, that how do we actually utilize germplasm, biodiversity, and then which is being conserved by poor farmers. They continue conserving those. And many genes which are there undiscovered. We today talk of allele mining. The alleles are sitting there, which can give us another revolution in terms of field, in terms of nutrition, in terms of climate resilience, in terms of whatever you want. The social aspect of it can be addressed. If we actually discover those traits in these germplasm lines, and still unexplored, and reaching the unreached mention was made. And how do we really do this? And poor farmers are still continuing conserving those. And probably we have a lot more to do. And let me finish it quickly. And of course, the discovery of haplotypes using new technologies. Genomes can be sequenced, and thanks to Renu and Dr. Manju Sharma for rice genome to happen. And today, we took 4 or 5 years to sequence one chromosome of rice in India, and the 10 countries sequencing one genome today. One laboratory can sequence in few days genomes and to a completeness. from telomere to telomere. And, the kind of technology we have, mention was made. And why not? And, and also discovering something which is neglected, forgotten in unadapted germplasm lines through pan-genome analysis. And, because we need to have ecological sustainability, the ecosystem service. How do you provide ecosystem service? By tailoring a genotype. First of all, forget about management. Tailoring a genotype to provide ecosystem services. How ecology balance can be maintained, as mentioned by Professor Swaminathan, not by putting and pouring chemical fertilizer, but by providing right kind of genotype, which is balanced with regard to ecosystem services genetically. And that breeding is yet to start. And this is the time, and today is the day, in this 100 years of Professor Swaminathan's legacy, we should be actually committing to this, breeding for ecosystem services, building genotypes for tomorrow. And how do we really do this? And pan-genome analysis, bringing those from the unadapted lines to the adapted germplasm lines and improving adaptiveness and providing all that which is required. And also putting those, into the right background. And gene editing today, Dr. Vishwanathan is here, in the audience. And we built a program, and Dr. Renu was there those days, secretary, and, DBT. So we built a program, and today we have 2 varieties released through gene editing. But how the wild germplasm can be converted to cultivated, and all adaptive traits are being there, but yield is given, priority, and yield is increased, and all ecosystem services are provided, and the ecology is not really disturbed, and we have yield advantage. Can we really imagine? And there are some examples which are happening through gene editing, and I believe in years to come, we should be able to have more such genotypes coming through use of technology. There will be more discussion in the next session. I'll not really, talk about it. Certainly, if you see this analysis, which are published in Nature Food recently, agro biodiversity index scores, so agro biodiversity is underutilized in national food systems, and including India, very poorly, represented. So this is one aspect we need to really bother about, and how do we really address this? And thank you very much for your kind attention. But there are a lot more to talk about, and how do we? This is only 2-3 aspects I highlighted, but there is mention was made that use of AI and use of precision technology. Professor Swaminathan mentioned about it in his crop science paper. And today, IoT-based irrigation system is possible. The drip irrigation system, about 12.9 to 13 million hectares of drip irrigation. A long way to go. And how do we have ecologically sustainable agriculture? So for that, you need to really have, a large-scale adoption of drip irrigation. IoT-based intelligent irrigation systems to be in place, in the whole country. Needs a policy support, and also funding. Large-scale investment has to happen for this, water-saving technology to go to the field. And this is another aspect of it. And so also drone-based fertilizer application, pesticide application, so that the ecology is not disturbed and ecosystem services are not disrupted. So precision agriculture parameters which are defined today very much, and the science-based policy making which is in place, mention was made. And we should be promoting precision agriculture so that we make Evergreen revolution a reality. Not just genetic aspect of it, but the management aspect of it. The whole lot of things are there, that how do we really manage it, in various ways, whether it is conservation agriculture, whether it is, integrated farming system models. Conservation agriculture, just 2.5 million hectares in this country. Again, a long way to go. And similarly, farming system. NABI data says farming system models are there in 7.5 million hectares, but ICAR data says it is only about 1 million hectares. A long way to go in terms of management practices and systems mode of operation to have Evergreen revolution to be operationalized in the ground level. And today is the day to discuss. Hopefully, the panel will have plenty of time to really delve deeper into all this and then bring us many new ideas and aspects to implement Evergreen Revolution. Can this be the country's policy and program today? And the 10,000 crores investment on a fund called Evergreen Revolution Fund. Evergreen Revolution Fund. And this would encompass all these aspects which I am talking about. And maybe some of you can add on to this. And very specifically, Secretary of Agriculture didn't come, but we could have actually prepared a document from based on deliberation and provide to the government that how Evergreen Revolution Fund should be utilized. They have started many programs, as Mr. Srivastava was mentioning, and some programs are already in place. And probably there's a lot more to do in terms of technology taken to the areas which are still unreached. And that's the message of today's deliberation. Thank you very much. I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Mohapatra. That was a very enlightening talk and a wonderful address on this occasion. I think this is really what has not just set the tone for the dialogue, but given us a lot of food for thought. Not just food for agriculture, but food for thought as well. And I'm sure many of the key points that you've raised are going to be important as we take this into the panel. So please join me in giving him a very, very big hand. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohapatra. Thank you so much for this first part of the session that we have had. And yes, since we are, as I had said right in the morning itself, we're all going to have so much to talk about, Professor Swaminathan, but we are conscious of time where we would want to conclude this well on time because all of you have busy schedules. So thank you very much to Mr. Srivastava and Dr. Mohapatra for joining me for this inaugural panel. And with this, I think with your permission, we'll move into the next talks as we move on. So thank you very much, Srivastava. I'm happy and pleased to now invite our speakers to the panel and Dr. Sanjay Kumar, who was the former director of IHBT, currently the chairman of the ASRB, the Agriculture Selection Recruitment Board. Please join me. They're changing the nameplates, but please come in and join. And we then have Dr. Srinivas Rao. He's the current director of IARI. And IARI is, of course, carrying forward. इनके यहाँ रख दीजिए श्रीनिवास राव साहब का उनका वहाँ कर दीजिए so join thank you is carrying forward the legacy of Professor Swaminathan, as he said, as it moves on. I'm very pleased to invite Dr. Bansal, Dr. Bansal, who is the former director for NBPGR and currently the secretary for the National Agriculture Science Academy, NAS. And I think that's again a very important contribution that he's paying as we move on. And I'm pleased to invite Dr. Ashwani Pareek, the executive director of the NABI Center at Mohali, a DBT Institute on Agriculture Biotechnology. All our speakers here have and continue to play a very, very important and vital role in not just development of new technologies, but carrying forward technology deployment, bringing in newer technologies, and most importantly, the point that has been discovered. Dr. John, we do have a chair for you there, so please do come in there. What did you say? There is a chair there. So please do join us, Dr. John. Dr. John has been instrumental in igniting the thought of this whole dialogue. So definitely, Dr. John, it's important for you to be with us on the dais. So with this, as I said, each of our leaders here is playing a very important role in taking this legacy forward. So without wasting too much of time, the title of our discussion today is Technologies Reaching the Unreached. And they've all played an important role, and they will continue to see how they're taking it ahead. So with this, I will invite Dr. Sanjay Kumar, and I request you to kindly give your thoughts, whether it's through a presentation or an extempo talk. But I will also like to request all the speakers that we will try to keep some time at the end of the session for an interaction with our esteemed audience here, who's also going to be bringing up some very important aspects. So Dr. Sanjay Kumar, first is yours.
Very good afternoon to all of you. And indeed, I would say that it's an honor to speak on a day when we are celebrating the legacy of 100 years of none other than Professor M.S. Swaminathan. Thank you very much, Madam Renu, Madam Renu Swaroop ji. Because of you, we are all here today. And once she called us, I just thought that for a person like Dr. Swaminathan, what should we be speaking? He is the one who has taught us what we should be doing. I remember, Madam, one incident when we joined IARI, and Dr. Sinha was my teacher. So one day he told me that Dr. Swaminathan is coming and you should all attend his lecture. And we said, sure. So we rushed to the auditorium. It was all full, all chairs were full, and we could find some steps. And we just sat on those steps to listen to Dr. Swaminathan. And that was his, at that time, attraction to listen to him. And my first impression, we all were aware at that time, you know, I was a student of plant physiology, so superoxide radical and proline, all those things we used to study. And once I saw his first slide, it says that per capita food availability, we should be serving for the masses, we should be serving our farmers, we should be ensuring that nobody is poor, nobody is sleeping without food. And that was a total change of our thought process. And at the end, he also conveyed to us, whatever you do in the lab, it should reach to the stakeholders. And I think that message was very, very clear. And Madam, you believe it or not, that laid the basis that what we should be doing in the future. And when I came back, I discussed with Professor Sinha at that time that these are the things we learned in today's lecture. And he said, actually, once you pass out, that is the thing, that is a service that you should be doing for your nation. And then only it will be worthwhile to whatever studies you are doing here, whatever experiments you are learning here, unless it reaches the society, it reaches the stakeholder, it does not make much sense. And I think message was very loud and clear. So as a youngster, when we started, you know, after doing my PhD, I joined the Institute of Himalayan Bioresource Technology at Palampur as a scientist. And I was working on some enzymes. At that time, we are working very closely with Madam Renu Swaroop itself. Actually, she was the one who brought out that concept of bioprospection at that time. And we worked on one of the enzymes known as superoxide dismutase. But you know, something at the back, it was there that whenever you do a technology, it should reach to the stakeholders. I think that message was very clear. And also we had learned at that time, technology can be very strong, but it should be like a car, you know, you just push a button and car starts moving. You don't have to worry where combustion is taking place, where, you know, other parameters are taking place. You just have to take care of the gear, etc., and the car should be moving. So technology has to be very simple when it goes to the stakeholder. And that was for the first time, Madam, with your, I think it was intense support from DBT at that time for our bioprospection project. I think at that time it was around 70 lakh rupees at that time, and it was a huge support from DBT. But finally, once that technology of enzyme production went to the company, and even today, if you go to the phytobiotech site, it writes very proudly that we are the only company in the world which gives you this enzyme, which can be autoclaved and which can be, function under any sort of environment. They still today, even today, madam, you go to that site and they put it. And I realize, although we did all that, but at the back, it was the clear message what we learned in that small lecture, that whatever you do, it should ultimately reach to the society. Similarly, I'll give you an example. When I took over as a director, my first job was that I should interact with the farmers of Himachal. What do they need? And once I visited them, they told one or two points very clearly. They said that we have a lot of land around us, but we can't do any cultivation because wild animals comes and they destroy our land. And so therefore we have stopped. And another consequence was that, during rains, the topsoil layer would go off. So there was ecological consequence, there was economical consequence, and farmers were suffering. So now we got some idea. And again, the basic, if you ask me today, the basic fundamental, what we learned during various discourses of Dr. Swaminathan, that ultimately, if you don't understand what your stakeholders need, then whatever you do, it will have no consequence. So I think first thing is go and listen, and then you lead. Then only something will be attainable. So with that, we said we should offer them some crops which is not destroyed by wild animals. But giving crop itself does not fulfill our requirement. So we identify that which are the crops on which India is still dependent on imports. And we realize that almost all aromatic crops, all aromatic oil in this country is being imported. For example, rose oil, which sells 7 lakh rupees a liter, we import still today from Bulgaria for around 40 tons or so. Even Tagetes minute oil, we were importing from South Africa at a very hefty price. And we said, these are some of the crops which are not destroyed by any animals. We should offer them. So we offer them the crop, but at the same time, we ensure that there is end-to-end connect. Like complete value chain is created, right from crop to processing to value addition to quality control to the market linkage. And we discussed this at CSR level, and we launched a mission known as Aroma Mission. And I think even today it's a very successful mission. And by that moment we launched that, all those lands which were lying barren, suddenly they started flowering because animals won't destroy them. And then we also, in order to ensure value chain, we put the distillation unit, which we taught to the farmers that they should be learn, how to distill the oil, how to make oil, and then link it with the market. And as a result, Himachal Pradesh became the biggest producer of wild marigold oil. So we were importing around 12 tons from South Africa, and 8 tons was being produced just in Himachal Pradesh itself. And I think farmers which were not earning any money from that land, from 1 acre, they were earning around 1.25 lakhs rupees just in 3-4 months' time. Right? So suddenly those farmers who were sending their kids to Baddi and other places for 8,000 rupees per month employment, they said, now we got some good things to work upon. So it also stopped the reverse migration. So what biohappiness Dr. Swaminathan was always propagating, suddenly it came into force just by changing one technology. But here it was not only crop technology, it was also the processing technology. Similarly, once we, in Himachal, there is a lot of area under cold desert where there is hardly any water. Around more than 1 lakh hectare in India is around under cold desert. And if you go and talk to the farmers there, except for, sometimes they will grow in some area, cauliflower, peas. In other areas, they hardly have anything to grow. So we realize that across the world, what is the practice being done in such areas? And, we came across very interesting crop known as hing. Every Indian consumes. And we realized that India does not grow even 1 gram of hing in this country, right? We are all importing from Afghanistan, Iran, those places, around 1,500 tons, approximately, 1,000 crore rupees every year we spend just in purchase of this hing crop. But then now this has to be, that proper technology has to be brought in. So with the help of ICR, at that time, Dr. Mohapatra have also DG at that time. So with the help of NBPGR, we brought in hing for the first time in this country. But then challenge was, can we ensure that it grows in farmers' field? Because our percentage was hardly 1%, the hing that we brought into this country. So then all the lab work started, and now the germination percentage is approximately 90%. And once we standardized it, now I think we established this hing plantation in this country at around, before I left IHBT, it was around 200 different locations, different farmers, all our even Kiwi case, they were empowered. Because one thing we remembered, and also in today's clip we learned from Dr. Swaminathan, he said that unless there is political support, whatever you guys want to do, I think nothing will be achievable. So we had a very close interaction with the state government. So now state government started owning. If you see the budget speech of Himachal Pradesh, 2 years consecutively, they put 25 crore rupees exclusively to give to IHBT so that work on hing can be done, right? So that was almost, I would say, that dramatic change that we could do. And like that, hing, kesar, cinnamon, all those crops on which India was importing, we were consumers, we ensured that our farmers get the right technology and they get it. So this was one issue that we focused. And I think a lot of support, the idea that India has to be self-sufficient. In at least, apart from wheat and rice, there are other areas also which need to be supported. And one small area again we touched is about the malnutrition. In, hilly areas, we have a lot of problem with the malnutrition. And what we realized, major problem why this malnutrition was, number one, whatever government of India's program was there, they used to serve such products which neither children would love to eat, nor the women would love to eat. And I think that was our affected party. And reason was, it was not delicious. They did not enjoy it. They would supply some panjiri type of thing. So we made some interesting product like, candies, bars, and all rich with the bioavailable nutrient. And moment we did that, I think it just changed the whole scenario. So malnutrition was yet another area that we had focused. And third was empowering our youngsters. I tell you, a small change we did and it changed the whole scenario. We just argued, when a student comes to us for doing PhD, we offer him fellowship. But once a startup comes to us, he is a young boy, he does not have much money, we don't offer him anything. So we started a provision to giving money to that youngsters, and we initiated that. 25,000 rupees per month we would pay, but it was a conditional. If you don't pay us money back, you will have to return all the money, whatever we have given you, right? So it was a conditional payment to them. But as a result, so many startups came up. So we have around just in 3-4 years, we had around 56 startups, all their products in the market, and everybody was enjoying, right? So small things. And what Dr. Swaminathan Sahab used to say that, bio-happiness, that's what we realized, that bio-happiness, how our bio-resources can give happiness, not only to the people, but also to the nation at a large. So like that, we had taken so many initiatives, and all the technologies then that we developed in the institute, we ensured that within 1 year it goes to the entrepreneur. So very intensive program used to happen. We used to invite all the possible entrepreneurs, and around 40 technologies we sent to around 88 entrepreneurs, and I think that was a big success. And all based on bioresources. We would ensure no harm to the environment. We will ensure that all possible care is taken care, that all is our indigenous, so that we take pride in that. And we will ensure that import substitution has to be there. So these were some of the things, madam, which we learned from one single lecture, followed by a discussion with my own teacher, Dr. Sinha Saab, that we had to ensure that the country is self-reliant on several fronts. So thank you so much, madam. You had given me 15 minutes. So I tried to give you some feelings that, what is possible if we have the right guidance. And I think just one word of Dr. Swaminathan, I remember, that we had to be self-reliant. We don't have to be import dependent. That his last NDTV statement,
Yes.
grains. So we said, apart from grains, there can be so many other things associated with grains for which it's important. And let me also tell you, madam, one thing. When we had to make the vision statement of our institute, one statement I had read about Dr. Swaminathan, and you, madam, also mentioned about that. And from there we picked up. And also there, the role of DBT was also there. He had written that we need a new vision for agriculture to spread happiness among farms and rural families. And he said that bio-happiness through conversion of our bioresource into wealth. And that was our catchwords, that bioeconomy. Therefore, if you see our vision document, it says about bioeconomy, and that we had taken from here. So, madam, maybe several of people may not know, but they had been our inspiration on various fronts. And these are some of the things which I shared, and so many things to share, as Dr. Mohapatra have also mentioned. But he is like a son, will keep on continuing giving his light to all of us to survive on this planet. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sanjay Kumar. Thank you so much for sharing your. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. And yes, we could actually go on the whole day, but as I said, it's important that we, sort of spend time giving this message. I am very pleased to invite Dr. Srinivas Rao, the Director IRI. So, Dr. Rao, your thoughts on how do we take this ahead? Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam, and for bringing all of us here, and all the dear participants and dear students of IRI here. And let me take my perspective of Professor M.S. Swaminathan under the life, leadership, and legacy of Professor M.S.S. And taking forward, and of course, I have a couple of slides to bring the whole life, legacy, and leadership all together, but I will not be reading all the statements, and some of the points were well covered, and the journey of Professor M.S. Swaminathan from Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore to then IRI to Cambridge and Wisconsin. I think it's as I made him really very holistic, and technology is one thing, and technology is very, very important. But what else Professor M.S. Swaminathan sir has contributed through his special features and attributes, how the technology is translated to the ground level, and how he has created impacts, what are his personal features, and which made him a person of holistic. Then let me take, and the Dr. Mohapatra also said that from CRRI Cuttack to then the glorious time as a director of IARI 1961 to 1972, where seeds, in fact, seeds of green revolutions happened, and also subsequently how he has contributed an international platform, and also more importantly, National Commission on Farmers. And subsequently, what he has done as a green revolution and a father of green revolution, credited with averting famine and ensuring food self-security. That's what our previous colleagues and previous presenters also said. Then Evergreen Revolution was also the important point is that he is a believer in science for social transformation and empowerment of smallholder farmers. At the same time, I think personally, when I was reading several books on MS Swaminathan sir, is a very, those days, in fact, foresightedness is a futuristic and holistic, then built research innovations. Of course, the research, earlier presentation also, gene studies which were made. And also, particularly, I expected our ASRB chairman, sir, will mention, but I will be taking thing. He has not only research innovations he has built, he has created the much needed manpower for Indian Council of Agriculture Research. The establishment which we are now celebrating the so many 113 ICAR Institute and 721 KVKs, which country needs. He has made a strong foundation. Then once manpower is built up, what is critically required? How each manpower has to be translated efficiently, effective, contributive to the country. He has created ASRB in the name of talent set. And once selected people, how they have to mold it to the country's welfare, he has created NAM. Then he contributed human resource management. And afterwards, any technology is a dynamic. And what is the think tank beyond the research and development? He has created National Academy of Agriculture Sciences, NAS. And beside all these innovations, he has made social safeguarding and reformer. And finally, in fact, what I really surprising, more than genetics, is spoken about environmental security very often. And of course, and I was indicating that journey where he has moved, and some of the slides points were presented by the previous speakers. And also one of the important where those days it was technology is there and convergence is required. But here is the MS Swaminathan sir, where field demonstration to farmer adoption 1965, because he has initiated 150 demonstration plots. In fact, there is a tolerant varieties, but along with other technologies are there, how they are performing in the field level, at the ground level, to showcase high yield and disease resistant in the field conditions. I think these 150 demonstration plots has made significant transitional platform from research and research plots and research institute to the ground level realities. Then subsequently, we all know that what are the success stories in terms of rice, wheat. But the most important point is that farming is designated sustainable, equitable, pro-nature. That was the important point was highlighting. I will tell that the pivotal role of IRI, of course, other colleagues are also presented, but being I former director of IRI, and I will certainly take that what is the legacy and what is the foundation he has made, which contributed through IRI. Then subsequently, in fact, he is also NARES, National Agriculture Research Education Extension altogether, how NARES he has built. And also ECRIPS, very important institution, building all India coordinated research projects. Then also subsequently what I was telling, and also is contribution through international organization establishment. Then I was telling that, of course, current policy is very important, madam. What I believe that we have many issues, science strong science is there, strong science technologies are there, but to translate these technologies into the effective platform at a ground level, a policy requirement is there, and really which we are now thinking in us, it is a contribution by Professor M.S. Swaminathan sir. And certainly I take my association with the NAM, the person who has contributed NARM, he attended first batch of foundation course in as an inaugural chief guest in 1976. Then NARM got fortunate, he has also participated 100th foundation course. More than 10,000 scientists were trained at NAM, which emphasized the need to expand NAM capacity building programs. What I personally believed, Ms. Swaminathan said, every human being needs a renovation. A repairs and maintenance is required. Just we Sarkari language we see it. Unless that is a path when is deviated, his personal belief is that we have to re-oil it and bring to the mainstream. A system will be developing, contributions will be taking forward. Then, in fact, Professor's philosophy of agriculture, I will not tell that how dear and near to the nature and biodiversity, Professor M.S. Swaminathan, he was the person promoting integrated pest management and soil health. In fact, as Dr. Mohapatra ji was mentioning, the words coined those days now has led to the public policy now. In fact, that's why I was telling that's how futuristic he was, how foresighted he was. So that is in fact a unique feature of Professor M.S. Swaminathan. As a chair of National Commission on Farmers, of course, very, very close to the farmers of India, always used to take care of the farmers, and also MSP is in his minimum support price, which is very, very critically required. So Professor M.S.'s philosophy, you can see that he has spoken about climate, environment, food security, nutrition, healthcare, and also the new seeds and the human touch, and also today's which we are facing, the Indian agriculture is a monsoon and a market crisis. Professor M.S. Swaminathan's philosophy has made a foundation of MSP, which has led to the 3 farm laws, and a lot of debates were there on the MSP. Then, of course, I will not be taking Bharat Ratna 2024. It's a great honor for all of us. Then at the same time, a leader-led filled hungry bellies of India and the world. I think through entire legacy and entire is a hard work and pursuance. And also its philosophy is love and harmony with the students. He used to love with youngsters, and he used to love with the children. And I have put some attributes, that attitude towards his students, concept of unilateral love, darkness and light philosophy of M.S. Swaminathan. As a humanistic scientist, how humanity and scientific contributions he has taken together. Then at the same time, he is advocate of biodiversity farming, and is a model of science-led development replicated worldwide. And finally, then when God called him back on September 28, 2023, at the age of 98, while world remembers him as a humanitarian, as his legacy lives in the every field, every lab, every farm of India, as India and the world remain indebted, then IRI takes pledges to continue his legacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rao, for taking us through this entire journey, and very appropriately ending by saying the legacy continues. And I think that's really the message that is to be taken on. And IARI is really where, this whole new technology development moved on. And thank you so much for your thoughts onto this. We move on to our next speaker. And thank you, Dr. Bansal, for already going to the podium. You've saved time. Who will, as I said, was the former director of NBPGR, has played a very, very strong role in conservation of genetic resources, a key factor that we have heard since the morning. And so over to Dr. Bansal's presentation. I think if it's okay with all of us, we should move there. It was a little difficult for us to see the slides.
डेट का होगा डेट का होगा yeah sure yeah yeah. Well, friends, good afternoon. Dr. Renu Swaroop, Dr. Trilochan Mohapatra, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, all the esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I feel to be an honor for me to be a part of this particular dialogue, which is being organized as a part of Professor M.S. Swaminathan's centenary celebrations. And I personally, professionally thank Dr. Renu Swaroop to invite me and to give me this opportunity to be part of this. And as the title of this particular dialogue reads, is all about from green revolution to evergreen revolution. And I'm going to talk to you in my presentation kind of work which we have done, and all inspired by Professor M.S. Swaminathan. We always want to, as Dr. Mohapatra also pointed out, to move from green revolution to evergreen revolution, but the root of this will always go through utilization of these plant genetic resources or bioresources, which we have plenty in our country when we talk about it, and that's what I'll give you a message by the end of it. And when we talk of inspiration from Professor M. Swaminathan, actually speaking, I had a fortune of meeting him or having all the discussion starting about 40 years ago, when I was also a student with Dr. S.K. Sinha at IRI in mid-80s. And it was during that time that I also thought of working on genetic resources, being a plant physiologist, how we can identify these new sources of plant genetic resources, which could be utilized as donors for improving the drought tolerance by breeders in the breeding program. So I started with, as a PhD program, when of course Dr. Sanjay was a part of it, Dr. Vishnathan was also part of the same lab. And I started with 20 accessions of wheat genetic resources that time, including some of the wild species and related species to Triticum mistivum, which is the wheat which we all eat about, bread wheat, we talk about it. So right from those days, how I have been able to utilize or work through this particular pathway of enhancing the utilization of these plant genetic resources, not by me alone. I mean, I'm going to really, kind of evaluate them, but to be enhanced utilization by the breeders. As Dr. Mohapatra gave some examples of Suvarna, Sub-1 and others, which has all come up from these resources, from these plant genetic resources, the various genes and alleles. So that's the kind of work which I'm going to talk about it, and remembering Professor Swaminathan to go forward, his legacy. You all know about green revolution, which is an outcome of, again, a utilization of plant genetic resources. And here you can see, these are the genetic resources which are shown here, which were utilized, giving rise to Norrin-10, as been shown here, which then became a source of that semi-dwarfing gene, to give rise to these new wheats, and which gave rise to green revolution. And you can all see from here on, like mid-60s or 70s, how the production of our country has as such increased over now 330 million tons. Overall, we talk about it, while the land area remaining the same. So the father of green revolution, as we mentioned, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, of course, worked together with Dr. Norman Borlaug, and all that legacy is being carried forward, whatever we do in Indian agriculture during those days which Dr. Swaminathan had started. And some reporter, when Dr. Norman Borlaug got the Nobel Prize, some reporter asked him the question that, yes, you are all very successful, you're getting this Nobel Prize for peace, and all success has come mostly from India. And why could not we replicate it to another country, or a continent, which is Africa? So Dr. Norman Borlaug said, in Africa, we didn't have institutions like, or we don't have institutions like IARI, New Delhi. And we don't have scientists like Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. So that's how, actually speaking, we remember Dr. Swaminathan as a father of green revolution in this country. And again, now his vision was, which I have interacted with him personally as well over times, that how can we start increasing the, this kind of genes and alleles presence in our modern day varieties, coming from these land races, farmers varieties, obsolete varieties, etc., etc. So I'm just going to give a glimpse of how rich are we globally or nationally in conservation of these plant genetic resources, and where are we in terms of utilizing it to, really speaking, achieve evergreen revolution, which we really want. Globally, we are doing very well. We have about, this is the number I'm showing you, in about 1,750 gene banks, about 7.4 million accessions. We also have an international gene bank actually located at Svalbard, near North Pole, which we had an opportunity also to deposit some seeds from India. And we also are home to a second largest gene bank in the world, where we have about 0.45, now in fact about 0.5 million accessions conserved. So we are doing very well, actually speaking, including if you look into these wild relatives of cultivated plant species, we have all compiled it into a particular volume of about 700 pages, and that information is also available. So we are doing very well when talk of internationally or nationally, with regard to conservation of these, genetic resources. I'm talking here in the gene banks, ex situ conservation particularly. But how are we doing with regard to the utilization? These genetic resources are not fully utilized for crop improvement. Out of these about 7.4 million accessions, globally I'm talking about it, only 2% of these have been utilized when we talk of utilizing the wealth which is available, the genes, repertoire, alleles present in those through, let's say, for example, conventional breeding mostly. Though there's a long pathway, many of the breeders may not like to take that particular pathway to, really speaking, for going for the genetic enhancement and then identify those donors from the genetic resources, which will really become part of the breeding programs. And of course, we all know that to move forward, for even developing climate resilient crops in agriculture, we need to utilize the genetic resources. And these are, of course, the repertoire of novel genes and alleles. And now this is one aspect of it, the availability of the genetic resources. And in this particular dialogue, we're also talking about it, as Dr. Renu mentioned, about the technology. So if you look into this latest report, which has come out very recently, this is the technology innovation report by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. You see here, so many technologies are listed, about 18 of them. And one of them you can see is finding a place here is gene editing, or we call it genome editing. And how can we now utilize? We can, of course, increase the utilization of the genetic resources to plant breeding. We continue doing that, but we are still not able to utilize as much as we want. But can we now talk about genome editing, whether it can really be utilizing it and enhancing it further? I'm just giving you one example. This is the example where there's a genetic variability already available. This is one particular variety of rice where the number of grains are very less, about 164. This is another one, 306, and this is another one, which is 405. So this kind of genetic variability. So if we identify the genes and alleles associated with this kind of genetic variability to have more number of grains per panicle, either these could be directly used as donors in a breeding program, or we could identify genes and alleles. Using genome editing, we can try to do a wonder. And in fact, I'm very happy again, Dr. Viswanathan, who is taking leadership on genome editing here in this country. There's a program, 2 of those genome edited varieties have already been released. So based on this work, this work identified a QTL. They then identified a gene within that QTL region. And one of the genes is this, as listed here. I don't want to go technically into details of it, which is responsible for cytokinin accumulation, for example. So if there's a deletion in this gene, if you create that using genome editing, you can also develop a variety, as was done here, at DRR Hyderabad. Of course, 2 of them, one is this, another is Dr. Viswanathan's, which I'm not showing here at the moment. And that particular allele, was actually installed here in this elite cultivar, which is given the name DRR Dan 100. This is in fact in Samba, Missouri. So therefore, friends, the message is beyond plant breeding, conventional plant breeding, or any other method of plant breeding crop improvement. Today, fortunately, we have this genome editing available, and therefore to move from green revolution to evergreen revolution, which is the title of this particular dialogue today, that how new technologies can be utilized, reaching to the unreached through the development of these high-yielding, climate-resilient varieties. And I see the process through genome editing could be the way out. So therefore, these plant genetic resources, be it a modern variety or a landrace or a breeding stock or a farmer's variety or obsolete cultivars, all these, if we want to really speaking, as I said before, there are plenty available in our gene banks. We are very rich in agrobiodiversity, could all be utilized by these various methods of genome editing as listed shown here for developing and improved varieties. But it's not that you can directly use them. You need to actually speaking characterize those, evaluate those. Where are the genes? As I give an example of rice, those 2 or 3 different varieties. They had done all that analysis. So we need to actually speaking start with phenotypic characterization, do evaluation, do genomics, and therefore then identify genes and alleles associated with particular traits, and then use the genome editing to develop improved varieties. So actually speaking, when we talk of leadership, I had this opportunity now at this juncture in 2010 to work in NBPGR. And I mentioned to you about, inspired by Dr. Swaminathan, in my PhD, I worked with 20 accessions of wheat. But now I'm sitting on the gold mine, the second largest gene bank of the world. And there we have 20,000 accessions of wheat. So I was wondering, can I move from 20 to 20,000? And that's what actually speaking we started in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, as long as I was there, that we started characterization, evaluation of this entire wheat germplasm, which is 22,000 accessions, which was not an easy task. And we did it at different hotspots in the country here, you can see. And this kind of genetic variability, which we had never seen before, in fact, we were able to capture it and see it. And then we entered into Limca Book of Records. We published to whatever extent we could on the cover of the Crop Science Journal, attention to the media, identified new resources from all these, for various diseases and all that, identified new resources of terminal heat tolerance, for example, in these 22,000 lines, and scientists from CIMMYT came all the way to visit us and to see this kind of an experimentation right under field conditions. You can see Dr. Viswanathan part of the study here, and some of these, scientists, program leaders from CIMMYT visited us. And then during that period of time, Dr. Swaminathan, fortunately, again, visited NBPGR. He went back. I narrated him all that story. I was so excited. He went back to Chennai, and he would normally write, if you like something, and that's what the email, in fact, is the biggest reward and award. I always capture and keep it with me. As Dr. Renu, you were mentioning about your experience, I was so nicely, happily listening to you. So this is the email you can imagine which I got. He writes, "My dear Bansal," there were few things he would write. I was happy to visit MBPGR again after some time. I was fortunate that he came. And I'm particularly happy that you are converting NBPGR as a functional conservation center so that the seeds preserved in these cryogenic seed banks become the progenitors of revolutionary progress. That's what we want in different crops maintained by NBPGR. And this is, therefore, fortunately, we have a technology available now, and with this technology, we're moving forward. So inspired by such messages from wheat, then we moved to chickpea. Chickpea, we about 14,500 accessions. We entire characterized it, developed the core, coming from about 40 countries here, you can imagine we have in our own country, and we characterized all. And then from here, we have to move on. Of course, if you want to use it for genome editing now, you identify those genes and alleles, you have to move on to do genomics and function genomics. And fortunately, during that time, 2013, Dr. Rajiv Varshney was in ICRISAT, and we therefore were able to partner with him to develop the first reference genome sequence of chickpea, of one of the cultivars. And then later on, he went on to develop the sequencing of more than 3,000 chickpea genotypes, as you can see here. And this is the, in 2021. So we were a partner with him in this particular program of chickpea genome sequencing. And then ultimately he developed a pan-genome, as we call it, of chickpea by sequencing the genome of 3,366 genomes, and assembled a genome size of this 592 megabase, Important here, what I'm trying to show, give a message is using the germplasm, using these tools of genomics, they were able to identify 1,500 such genes which were novel. And novelty means comes from that the genes, they were associated with adaptation and resistance to environmental stresses for climate resilience, which is more important. And many of the breeders, when they use these genetic resources in their breeding programs, there's always a problem of linkage drag, which is a technical issue. But then here they were able to identify some deleterious genes which could be easily knocked out with the kind of technology we have now of genome editing. So that's what exactly, in fact, we were then invited to write a spotlight in Trends in Plant Sciences, where we gave a message of carrying forward the phenotyping as we're doing of the entire collection, and then also undertaking sequencing to have a kind of a biodigital gene bank so that information could be captured and utilized on various genes and alleles for doing genome editing. So this is the pathway. In fact, we thought could be now utilized, by the students, by those young scientists who are associated with this kind of work, that you have a wealth of this information available with you here. Many of those have already been characterized, evaluated. You have to undertake genomics or functional genomics to identify those genes. Now this, the concept of pangenomes of a particular species, all those different varieties, thousands of that, or different wild species included as well, super pangenome, gives you a structural variation, gives you the information on some of those indispensable genes. Indispensable, they may be part of one species, may not be part of the other species, but they're in addition to the core genes they have. And these indispensable genes are the ones which will carry all those resistance genes for adaptation to climate change or for biofortification, or what we all left behind, actually speaking, while domestication occurred. And therefore, all they can install, in these elite crop cultivars and develop improved, genome edited crops. And fortunately, in our country, for the youngsters, these genome edited crop varieties are exempted from biosafety regulation in our country. And this was a landmark decision, thanks to Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Renu, Swaroop, Dr. Trilochan, Mohapatra, Mr. Sanjay Agrawal, the then Secretary of Agriculture, all of them worked and contributed to it, including the leadership at the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences that time, Dr. Mohapatra being the president himself. We were able to get this exemption, of particularly these two, SDN1 and SDN2, from biosafety assessment in March 30th, 2022. Soon I contacted again Dr. Swaminathan, that can we try to develop a roadmap for use of this for Indian agriculture. We developed this roadmap and published in Current Science when we identified major crops. What are the genes? What are the methodologies, SDN1 and SDN2? And all we put it together. And finally, we, of course, kind of prioritize these crops, like oil seeds very important. We import oil, a lot of oil. Pulse is always an important source of nutrition. And then, of course, rice, wheat, sugarcane, some of these crops. And some of these traits, which I picked up, of course, by talking to all the breeders, and even my discussion at times with Dr. Mohapatra, because he's in touch with that time with with our Honorable Prime Minister, and shorter duration. I remember, I think he kept on emphasizing our Prime Minister wants that we should save resources and we should use land more efficiently if we have some of these. So these were the traits actually, and this was the slide actually speaking, presented to Honorable Prime Minister by Mr. Rajesh Gokhale, the Secretary, of DBT, when we were talking about exemption, etc., or after exemption, I think, kind of roadmap we were talking about it. So then, but the friend's point here is important for the students. I thought I'll bring this point here is when we were identifying these priority crops and traits, for example, I'm showing you here in only pulses like chickpea, pigeon pea, or green gram for these prioritized traits. Whether do we have potential target genes identified for genome editing? In most of the cases, you see that we don't have it. So therefore, it is important to fall back and utilize those plant genetic resources, do functional analysis as well using CRISPR-Cas system, and then we can try to, use those genetic resources, for evergreen evolution. But fortunately, I'm just ending with this particular message here, that how important these genetic resources could be. Government of India announced in this just budget, second gene bank for germplasm collection, which will have all those safety duplicates of plant genetic resources. We have to utilize them as much as we can for these target genes and alleles so that we can really move effectively from green to evergreen evolution. And we remember, we live that legacy we're talking about it, of great professor, our beloved professor, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. And with this, I thank my colleagues with whom I always have time for discussion. They spare enough time for discussion. Dr. Viswanathan, Dr. Ashwani Pareek, both of them are here. Dr. Kutub, I'm retired, but these are the people with whom I go out to them, and take their time out for discussion, various aspects. And of course, the whole germplasm characterization, which I was talking to you about wheat and chickpea, these are the scientists, colleagues shown here in this picture who were participating and who helped me carry out that particular agenda forward. And then, of course, 3 different wonderful organizations I worked with or interacted with, all these 3. Unfortunately, I have interacted with the University of California, then Jennifer Doudna, the Nobel laureate, me and Dr. Viswanathan together actually were there, last year in January. And with this, friends, thank you very much for your patient listening. And if there are questions, we'll be very happy to answer those questions. So remembering once again, Professor Swaminathan, who inspired us and we came up to this particular stage. And thanks to Dr. Renu again for this opportunity. Thank you, friends.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bansal, for this very interesting talk. And with this, we will, yes, we are more or less on time. So I'm sure Ashwani is going to help us to keep that time, because I will want to open it to the students for their interaction. I mean, that's really what is going to be important. So with this, I invite Dr. Ashwani Pareek, the lead for NABI, who will take forward. You just heard it being mentioned here for the new technologies. Over to you.
Thank you. Very, very good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Dr. Renu, Swaroop, Dr. Swaminathan. It's really a pleasure and honor to stand before you this afternoon to talk about one of the person whom we love, whom we respect, whom we envision. So many things have been said about him since morning, and we are really indebted to him for his, being a good human being, good scientist, and so on and so forth. He's the one who talked about green revolution. But the topic of today's discussion is that how can we take forward his leadership, his qualities, his vision, his dream, under the situation when we are talking about so many new difficulties, new challenges, which my previous speakers have also spoken about. So what I will do in next 10 minutes or so, I will tell you that how are the new technologies enabling us to, answer some of these questions. I come from the DBT institution, National Agri-Food Biomanufacturing Institution, which is in Mohali. Green Revolution achievement, I will not go into detail, but one of the important thing I would like to mention, which is being said since morning as well, this is the technology which allows us to move from famine to food security. And the question now is that how long can we continue? Can we really continue with the food sufficiency or not in the era of climate change and a lot of new things which are coming up? And this is where the post-green revolution challenges I'm going to address upon. One of the things which I would like to mention to this hall is that we're already aware of it, that the poor soil health is being considered as one of the challenges to continue with the green revolution. The crops are being developed, but they do not have the nutrient. The nutrient challenge is also very, very important. And some of the other things which I will skip for the benefit of time. But the reality is that the post-green revolution challenges are many more in number, but we have the new technologies which we believe that will be able to sail us through in that. We're talking about the Evergreen revolution. The definition as given by Professor Swaminathan is listed on the right side, which has been mentioned by previous speaker as well. And one of the important things which he mentioned about the Evergreen revolution, that this Evergreen revolution has to be farmer centric. We need to have income. Farmers need to have better income. We have been talking about since morning, the support and the recognition as they are the key drivers of agriculture revolution and progress we are talking about. And we need to also mention that the Evergreen revolution cannot happen unless we address the challenges which are coming through the climate changes. So the crops which are producing now need to be climate resilient, and that can ensure the food security. In this particular table, I would like to draw your attention toward the changing definition of the thing which I'm talking about, the transition from post-green revolution to the Evergreen revolution. On the left side, if you talk about higher yield, which has been the prime activity of green revolution, and the post-green revolution, now we should talk about, and we're already talking about higher yield and nutrition as well. Higher yields have to be accompanied by the nutrition as well. We used to talk about resource use. Now we need to talk about resource use efficiency. We used to talk about environmental risk, but my dear friend, I would like to talk about environmental friendly approaches we are talking about. We have talked about agricultural economy. Time has come, we talk about bioeconomy. We need to talk about agriculture waste and converting into agriculture value-added product. That's what I'm going to give you a few ideas in the next couple of slides. We used to talk about agriculture commodities, and I would like to define the term biomanufacturing, where the Department of Biotechnology is taking it forward in the area of biomanufacturing. Some of these technologies for the post-green evergreen revolution have already been spoken about. Dr. Bansal has been very proactive in the gene editing, genomics. We hear a lot about it, speed reading, nanotechnology, AI, robotics, remote sensing, which Dr. Mohapatra also spoke about. So these technologies are actually giving us confidence in understanding that we will be able to have evergreen revolution here to come. Dr. Bansal also spoke about genome editing. These technologies are very, very precise, very, very rapid. They can come, overcome some of the limitations of traditional breeding. And of course, which Dr. Swaminathan also mentioned about empowering smallholder farmers. So I would like to particularly draw your attention to the third point, to the development of climate resilient region-specific crop varieties, which were perhaps not possible through classical breeding, but gene editing and genome editing allows you to have region-specific crop varieties. That is, I think, the beauty of these new technology. And I'm very happy to say that at National Agri-Food Biotechnology Institute, we have National Genome Editing Training Center, where Dr. Bansal and Dr. Vishwanathan have been supporting us. In training the next generation, we actually have 4 mandatory training starting from school level to college level to policymaker and industry, where we give hands-on training on gene editing at our institution. We also agree that this is the era of genomics. We have to move from beyond single reference genome. Pan-genome has also been discussed by the lead speaker this morning. The genomes need to be exploited for the full genetic diversity within species, including rare and population-specific genes, Dr. Bansal also talked about. This allows us to have acceleration in trait discovery, and inclusive breeding strategies need to be adopted so that they can contribute to the need of diverse agroecologies, which we have been discussing about. I would also like to draw your attention that these technologies also need good infrastructure. And I'm very happy to say that technologies such as speed breeding platforms, they are accelerating the crop improvement, which we used to do it, Rabi and Kharif crop. Now we can have 4 to 5 generations of crop within 1 year. So this is going to revolutionize the way which we are talking about. The gene editing in combination with the speed breeding can actually accelerate the crop improvement. And I'm very happy to say that establishment of DBT speedy seed facility, which we call specialized platform for enhanced and efficient delivery of seeds at NABI. We are very happy that they are being used by not only the researcher, but also by several industries as well. Soil health, which we have been hearing a lot about it. This is the foundation for sustainable farming. And the new technologies, when you're talking about combining these biofertilizer, biopesticide with nanoparticles, these are allowing us to have new era when we're talking about the good plant growth and rejuvenating the soil health and to cut the chemical use, which is, I think, the pillar for evergreen revolution. I spoke about nutrient-dense crop. I strongly believe that this is the need of the hour. We need to have the nutrient also being flushed into this crop, and this is where the role of iron, zinc, and vitamins are coming up. Diversity, which we have seen in a crop, need to be explored, and using the more modern technologies, we need to address this widespread malnutrition, which we often refer to as hidden hunger as well. At my institution, we are now deep into biomanufacturing. Thanks to Dr. Renu Swaroop. She has been helping us in many ways as well. I'll just give you a brief example. When we are talking about not only the seed production, we're talking about whatever the farmers are able to generate in the field condition beside the seed can also be put to valorization. For example, we are talking about low-calorie sweetener, which we are producing from rice straw, which is good for diabetic people, such as sucrose, such as xylitol, etc. We're also producing carotenoid because we believe that colors can do a magic in terms of health as well. Precursor of provitamin and golden banana is known to all of you. Black wheat, purple wheat, blue wheat are coming up in a big way. Microbial pigments we are talking about, and also towards the food residue, we are talking about soluble kinnu fibers, because these are the ones which are thrown away by the farmer. We are making prebiotics out of that, smart vegan protein, cocoa butter substitute. So these, the technologies which I'm just mentioning it to you, are not only giving good revenue out of it, but also making farmers self-sustainable when they can create valorization and earn something extra from the farm they are producing. These agriculture residues also being put to various fodder or the precursor chemicals such as silica, lignin. We have Center of Excellence in lignin as well, holocellulose, which are giving bioplastic as well. So whatever is being produced from the farmland beside the seed also need to be put to a good use using these technologies. And we have these technologies within our country, which we need to be talking about. The sustainable crop protection from agriculture waste in the form of food stabilizer, the food printing we are talking about, bioplastic, and all those things are giving us high value product beside the seed yield the farmer can have it, and which is making us confident that we are moving under the leadership of Dr. Swaminathan to move in evergreen revolution we are talking about. I would also like to draw your attention toward this last slide that we have new era futuristic policies also serving as a bed for the innovation and technology development. We are talking about bioeconomy, circular bioeconomy, sustainable development. Department of Biotechnology has come up with the Bio-E3 policy, which has been cleared by the cabinet, which stand for biotechnology, for economy, for environment, and for employment. Under these several programs have been envisioned. I will not go into detail of it for the sake of time, but I would like to also tell you that the last slide I have, that the birth of first dedicated biomanufacturing institute had taken place in the month of October with a strategic merger of National Agri-Food Biotechnology Institute and Center for Innovative and Applied Bioprocessing, which were also established during leadership of Dr. Renu Swaroop over here. These two institutions have been strategically merged for the simple reason that the first institute, NABI, focuses on primary agriculture. The second institution focuses on secondary agriculture. So time has come when we realize the potential of these two approaches, and we combine the two things in the form of biomanufacturing. The BRIC NABI has been born. We call it National Agri-Food and Biomanufacturing Institute. And we have several technologies, expertise, and approaches, which I'm sure in years to come will be able to fulfill the dreams of having evergreen revolution as envisioned by our leader, Professor M.S. Swaminathan. So with this note, I would like to thank you, and thank you very much for giving this opportunity. I'll be very happy to take questions and questions.
Thank you very much to all the speakers, and maybe you all can come back onto the dais because you may have questions from, and I would encourage questions from students. So let me summarize this, that discussion that we've had, starting with Dr. Mohapatra's address this morning and continuing into these talks that we had. The topic for today, friends, was from green to evergreen revolution. Spoke about new technologies reaching the unreached. Dr. Soumya in her talk brought out what Professor Swaminathan used to say, the whole issue of biohappiness. And I think through this day, we've actually discussed these very appropriately. It's very clear from what our speakers have brought out today that we have a legend, Professor Swaminathan, who set the roadmap for the country in place and how we need to move agriculture ahead. And it was very clear in his message, even when the Green Revolution began, it cannot be a static process. It has to be a dynamically moving process. And Professor Swaminathan displayed that, led us with that direction as he moved on. I think somebody said here that his pace was so fast that while, I think it was Dr. Mohapatra who said that even while we were writing down notes, he had already thought about what the next, not just the action, but what the next recommendation should be for us to move forward. So while he would give us directions for actions to be taken, he would not wait for them to be implemented. We already had a set of actions that we want to move forward. And that, friends, is the speed with which we have to move forward. It came out from all the talks that all our speakers brought out. The Green Revolution, we spoke about, and I think Dr. Mohapatra alluded to it in great detail. Dr. Srinivas Rao and Dr. Sanjay Kumar brought out as to what was the basis and the genesis of how the Green Revolution came in. But from the Green Revolution to where we stand today, I think it's important for us to introspect. Are we really on the path of the Evergreen Revolution? what is required into it. Yes, new technology for sure. We've seen it presented so beautifully today, from the new varieties, the hybrid varieties, the high-yielding varieties, the seeds, the conservation, the genetic resource conservation, moving towards material that was made available for the farmers through pre-breeding material, looking at marker-assisted selection, genomic era, the pan-genomes, rice genome, Dr. Mohapatra spoke about. We were struggling at that time. Then came the tomato genome where we took on, and then the coffee, and we can't list it now. It is now, as he said rightly, it's there in the lab to be quickly sequenced and released. I'm sure what we are talking about today and what we were talking about a couple of years back, we all know genome editing. We kept saying, will it be a reality? Will it be a reality? We're seeing it becoming a reality. Dr. Bansal spoke about the accessions of, we moved in from not just characterizing accessions to going to the phenotyping and the genotyping. And I recall, Dr. Bansal, that when that program of NIPGR with NBPGR and IARI, Dr. Rao, was taken up, and I was there, I think at that point of time, 63,000 accessions had been phenotypically and genotypically characterized. Moving on, I'm sure the number has gone up much larger. We've created the biological data repository at RCB, where all the biological data also gets coded. All I'm trying to say is you've seen the potential for it. Ashwani brought out the precision breeding, speed breeding, shorter duration crops. The only point that this has brought out is that the message that Dr. Swaminathan gave to us so many years back, that don't put any cap to your thinking. You can keep thinking, you can keep envisioning, and you can keep moving forward in that same speed. But I think what's important for us, and that was summarized in these talks, is you cannot move forward unless you look at those 3 Ps, which I always say in most of my talks, and that's the policy, the program, and the people. While policy leaders bring out excellent policies with their vision, etc., there has to be a very strong team which envisions what would be those programs. No strategy is effective unless you have an implementation plan. And no implementation plan is effective unless you see on the ground an action plan which is monitored effectively. And so the programs are important, but how are you going to take these programs ahead if you do not have the people to do it? So I think somebody, Dr. Rao, you spoke about the ASRB and how Dr. Swaminathan set the foundation. So he actually looked at that ecosystem, where the policies, the infrastructure which allowed the programs, and the groups that would allow the people. So having said this, I think it's now most important that we open this to our future generation, our young people who are going to carry this baton forwards. And I would like to encourage, we are well on time, we have 15 minutes, but I would like to open this first only to our young students who are there. Any questions, any comments to any speaker, we would encourage your participation into it. So please do not hesitate in putting your hands up. Just introduce yourself. Where are you from? And then we'll come back. So I'll, with my sincere apologies to all our seniors, I will first go to the students, and then I will keep 5 minutes for the seniors to move in with.
Because the normal educated middleman thinks that genetically modified crops are toxic. And the other comment I have is that we are now talking about guns and not about grains all over the world. So I hope R&D is not going to suffer in this respect. And I wonder why China is still so far ahead of us in productivity.
Okay, so we'll come back to the responses to that. I'm sure you'll get it in the questions. Yes, somebody there was raising his hand. Please introduce yourself, and if it's a question to one of the to our lead speaker or to any of the panelists, or it's a comment from your side.
First of all, my name is Sudhir. I'm from PhD second year, soil science, and I'm from IARI. We all feel proud to be here as our alumni is being talked about. It means his contributions, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, on his 100th celebrations. So we all know what he has done to this society and agriculture, but at the same time, this country has seen the worst of agriculture, the final stakeholders, that is farmers. the average salary of our farmers is 10,200, and annual salary is 1,22,000. So that is quite hardly 15 days of your whole salary quite sitting in this room. But at the same time, he was asked to be as chairperson to the society by commissioning the National Commission of Farmers 2004, and he gave valuable suggestions and the basic recommendations like MSP and all. And still on his 100th celebrations, despite having his valuable suggestions, this after repetitive successive governments, those recommendations are still pending. That A2 plus FL is being implemented now. He gave C2 plus 50%. That is still pending. We all know his contributions and his suggestions. He would feel really happy and proud if he will feel really proud and happy from the heaven if we try to implement his recommendations on this 100th celebrations of his birth date, and it would really construct the final stakeholders of this country also. This is my comment to this particular session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You brought out an important point. When these recommendations of this dialogue go through, we will reiterate that recommendation because that is something which has been on, but it will be reiterated. And as Dr. Swaminathan said, a conference is being held on his centenary day on 7th August, again, from which there will be a call to action, maybe as a Delhi declaration. We hope that we will be able to bring that into it also. So thank you very much. Any other students from that side? Yes, please. Just introduce yourself and then.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vel Murugan. I am a PhD student from the Division of Plant Pathology at IARI. To be here, I was very happy, and I was thinking whether to come here or not today because I have hundreds of colonies to be preserved, but still I choose to come here. And I would say I gained a lot of inspiration and motivation and what to be done in the future, listening from the experts. Sir, I have a question. I would want to know your view on using the plant genetic resources that we have in NBPGR for utilizing the microbiomes associated with those crops. Rather, we have phenotyping, genotyping. What about microtyping? What are the microbes associated with that plants? How could be used better for abiotic and biotic stresses?
You're right. Is it on? It is on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. No doubt, you're right that we all live together. It's not only a single crop. We have a whole microbiome actually, or microbes, all around in the rhizosphere and even otherwise in the aerial parts. And only recently this thinking has come in, actually speaking, to also study together, not only a single crop and its resilience to the climate and other stresses, the contribution of microbiomes as well is being considered. And only 1 week ago, this paper has come. Maybe if you give me your details, I'll be happy to share that paper with you. In fact, from some of the leading labs, first time they're talking about it to study together, this biodiversity, not only the crop diversity, the diversity in the soil or around, what are those microbes, could be bacteria, fungi, and all which are really helping, that plant to acquire those kind of, actually speaking, changes in their metabolism. Otherwise, depending upon what kind of genes and all they have to, climate resilience, etc. But you're right. But I think in India, there's no yet study together. We do study separately all those genetic resources, but I think this is a time to integrate all those. And this is a right message, and we certainly will take forward, I think. But I'll send you that paper, which is just very recent, but not in India yet that we've been come to that stage. We have not initiated that work of studying together, but I think we should. You're right. Thank you.
Maybe
Thank
I can
you.
also add
Yes,
to-
yes, Dr. Sanjay.
I think since he's a youngster, so I thought that it's important that we should mention it. Because what he raises is a very important issue. And what microbes can do in the plants, one can even think of that. Very recently, the plants which are there in the high altitude region and how microbes help in their adaptation. And you will be surprised. One yeast that we identified, which is normally present in the sea, normally reported, that imparts enormous tolerance to the plant under cold condition. That we showed it. And what we realized that even under field condition, under native condition, the point that you raised, if we have some that sort of connection and studies, probably in terms of climate resilience agriculture that we are talking of, this is going to be very important area and it will play a very positive role. That is 100% for sure. So I think continue this area, dear. It will be certainly very fruitful. And maybe I'll share you that publication, where we showed it without doubt, that is microbes can actually play a role in plant adaptation very positively.
Thank you. Any other question? Yes.
Namaste, my name is Mahendra Kumar. I was in Nobha Times newspaper and I had opportunity to do interview of Dr. Dr. Soumya ji when she was at WHO as a chief scientist. And now I'm in film line and I started my own studio. So I'm planning a documentary film on Swaminathan ji because he contributed a lot for our nation. The thing is that we always, our scientists, and we all speak about the organic food, but in the market, we don't see such organic food. And I also feel that government has failed to provide a safety of farmers because international market has captured our Indian farmer economics because all grains and all foods are coming outside of the India as GM mustard and other things. So what do you want to speak? I request all panelists what you people think on this issue.
Dr. Mohapatra, would you like to respond to this question of which he has given? Because
any help? We should be able to provide that. Organic food, yes, good. Organically, we are producing food. We are also exporting. Not that government is slipping over this. Government has taken many steps to promote organic production, and they are being marketed as well. There would be some issues and problems. I fully agree, and with regard to quality control and also expand production. I would agree that we need to expand production. Niche areas wherever feasible and the crops wherever amenable. So they need to be promoted. So need to really very strategically work out what is the need of the market nationally and globally, and then promote such crops and products. This is being done already, but I think there is a need to intensify this and strengthen this activity further. So, so well said. All the best.
Thank you, Dr. Mohapatra. I'll move this side now and first at the back there and then yours. Yes, please. Yes. Kindly introduce yourselves and then.
I'm Samrat Ghosh from Indian Institute of Science, Mohali. So I wanted to say it was an excellent presentation by all the experts. Although we have become independent, we are no more importing food grains, but we do import a lot of fertilizers, especially diammonium phosphate. If we go with the recent news, we have just signed a contract with Saudi Arabia, importing so much of diammonium phosphate. So this is my first observation and would like to know what would be your comments. My second concern, if we are talking about the super green revolution, now our biggest threat that has come is in the form of microplastics, which seem to be interfering with the photosynthesis, and they say that a lot of crop yield may go down in future because a lot of our rainwater is contaminated with microplastics. My third point is, although you have given a lot of credits to our labs, but not something has been told about our grassroots farmer who also contributes to this innovation. For instance, the apple farmer called Harman Sharma, who got even a Padma Shri for developing an outstanding variety of an apple called HRMN99, which has changed the apple cultivation. So I would like to know why in this forum we have not given that credit to a farmer who is also carrying out with his rudimentary knowledge innovations the best he can do. Thank you.
So I will ask Dr. Sanjay Kumar to speak first, because what they have done with the farmers going to bioresource technology, and I think he did mention it, probably because he didn't put it on a slide. You must have missed that point of his where he spoke about how technologies are moving to the farmers, vice versa. And the farmers' technologies are being brought to their startup incubator and they are being taken back. So over to Dr. Sanjay Kumar,
sure,
and then I will request also Dr. Rao to speak about the fertilizer and of course the farmers' issues as well. So
Sure,
Sanjay
sure.
Kumar.
So, Dr. Ghosh, I think what you're concerned is, I fully appreciate that unless we work hand in hand with the farmers, I think whatever we are doing in the lab may not make much sense. And I'll give you 2-3 instances where we worked as what farmer wanted, and then how farmers and our stakeholders, they empowered us, right? It was always a two-way story. It was never a one-way story. We always believed, for example, I gave you some stories about, say, Tagetes minuta, right? One plant where farmers said that all our plants are getting destroyed by the wild animals. So we discussed with them that if we offer you some crops which will not be destroyed by the wild animals, whether you will be happy or not, right? And they came to our institution. We had actually a lot of meeting, not with one farmer, but with whole set of farmer in Himachal. Several thousands of farmers were clubbed together. We discussed with them, and then the mission was launched, right? That we had to ensure that the oil that we are importing from South Africa, we are making all that oil within India and maybe within Himachal Pradesh itself, right? That was one successful story. Then similarly, there were stories on tulip, there were stories on hing, where all the farmer and lab interactions were there, and everything is on the farmer's field. Then when we interacted with the farmer, they said, sir, we are having these small things that we want to do, and we want to develop technologies, right? But for which we don't have a space where we can develop those technologies. So they came to us. So we offered our lab space to them. We offered our scientific knowledge to them. Let both of work together and bring out some products. So like that, around 50 products were brought out where ideas were by the stakeholders, not by us. We only helped in hand-holding them. And that's how whole thing of startup came up. And it was the other way around. We never asked that you should do this. They came and said, we want to, for example, I give you one story. They were highly educated. That was not a farmer. I'm giving you one story. The girl was a BDS doctor and husband was an IITN. They said that we want to make a detox solution which should be available to the market, and through Amazon we want to market it. So we want to extend the shelf life, etc. So they came to our institute. They were incubated for 6 months. They brought out the product. They were all Delhi based, but now they are doing very good marketing, right? So they came with their problem. Like that, they had a problem with our pine needles. So they said that we have so much pine needles, we want to make these products. So we held them. One lady came, she said that during, my mother used to give me these things during pregnancy. Now I am here. When we want to have those things, we are not able to have it. Can we have some sort of like cookies or some such things in that format, so that, that is specifically for the pregnant lady. So she came to us, she made that product, and she is not supplying only in India, but I think in Netherlands and other countries she is supplying, right? So what you said is correct. It has to be a two-way process. Then only scientific institution can play very, very significant role. And we have experience in both ways, where we understood the stakeholders' problem, we went to them, and then stakeholders came to us that what we can do. So I think very valid point, Dr. Ghosh.
And you'll also have to appreciate that in 3 hours, we can only give the pointers. We can't go into the details. Probably we'll do a series where we'll go into more details with that. Dr. Rao, would you like to just add quickly?
Yeah.
And then we're going to have time only for one last question because we're running late on time and we have to conclude in 3 minutes after that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That important question about DAP, and DAP demand is increasing, and But that is the policy where import cost is escalating. That's what leading to organic farming, how to reduce. But problem is that it's not only DAP imports in the world. The DAP is manufactured based on the rock phosphate. World rock phosphate, that mines also declining. In fact, that is also a future threat. And that is the where I think a lot of research and innovations are happening, how to utilize efficiently and how to get each kilo of with a minimum rock phosphate phosphorus. Second important point is a microplastic you have used. In fact, microplastics, of course, research indicated a lot of damage and health issues. But the point is that many policies have come that to avoid, to reduce, reuse, and single-use plastic, and also banning. But the concept of these things is community, and everybody should be participating. Then without participation, I think it's a very community, and people are thinking that plastic is very easy. Unless we all take part that it is single-use plastic and a reduction, that won't happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please. Very brief question, please.
Again, I was involved with the Ministry of Rural Development as eminent citizen. My question is only very simple. Yesterday, the Prime Minister approved the PM Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana, which intends to integrate 36 schemes of rural development and agriculture development, agriculture growth. So what is the reaction about this integration?
I think it's very important and very positive, and we welcome that, because that is the way when different policies are coming and different ministries are giving different policy, but the unit of implementation is at farm and village and these things. So when we aggregate in single form, single platform, I think synergies can be tapped and very effectively. We look forward and very positively.
Okay, there and this, and that's it. After that, please go for lunch. You all can interact. So one there and one here. That's it. Just last two, please. Very briefly. We're really running out of time.
Yeah, my name is Koti Reddy. I am a director in CFA. It is a consortium of Indian Farmers Associations. My question is around the soil strength. So we are now using multiple crops. Earlier, only farmer used to get one crop and the land used to revive on its own. Now it is continuously multiple crops and a lot of use of fertilizers and pesticides. The soil strength is degrading. So what are the steps should be taken to improve the soil strength, to sustain the soil strength? And one example, I will tell you one.
That's okay. We got your question. Let's hear the answer. Would Rao, you would like to respond to that?
It's not the soil strength; it's the soil carrying capacity of the soil. We all know that we were happily growing one crop, but we only made to grow 3 crops, 4 crops also. That was the need, in fact. But now the time is that how efficiently and smartly and with less pressure we can manage so that carrying capacity of the soil can be improved. It's not that one. In fact, in India is a very leading country where soil health management is taking place. One of the example is a soil health card and testing, residue management. Many aspects are going. In fact, as per the soil health card is in fact, many ITKs, our farmers, somebody said that farm innovation. Our farmers are leaders in soil health management. Many programs are.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. Yes, please. Very briefly, please. Just a limited question so we can close well on time. We've been talking about food since the morning, so we can't delay our lunch.
Dr. Rao, earlier we used to have a problem of malnutrition, stunt growth. Now recently we find our children are suffering from obesity. And Prime Minister also suggested that not to take jalebis and samosa. Can we modify genetically to have our crops so that we can have healthy food instead of maybe it's a millet or different type of millet?
I think that
Bansal, you want to say something also after. First, Dr. Rao.
Yeah, I think that Soumya madam is the best person to tell, but taking forward.
I was going to pass it to Soumya for the last.
Actually, it is the life cycle. In fact, we were using very traditional grandmother recipes when we were there. Very healthy and combined thing. we evolved into the aloo roti sabji and rice, these things, and we now realizing that going back, I think nutrition is a central part, and I think sooner people are realizing it's not that one, and maybe I think sooner we realize, we better it is. Many programs are there. Millets are a very important agenda.
Very quickly, Dr. Bansal, but I'm going to request Soumya to give a last point on that.
In fact, Dr. Soumya should have the last word, I believe, because only after my presentation, we were talking, right here, how can we empower nutrition, actually speaking, some of these crops, through latest technologies. But I must tell you that biofortification is a very big program of ICAR as a whole. As Dr. Mohapatra mentioned again, after climate resilient varieties, now they focus on biofortification to nutritionally, empower some of these varieties. So there's a lot of research going on, and it's going to come there.
So before I give it to Soumya, Ashwani will have to pitch in for a minute, because all the biofortification is being done by NABI, so I can't leave Ashwani out.
Thank you so
Ashwani, very quickly.
Yeah, quickly, ma'am.
30 seconds.
Biofortification is an important aspect as far as making the food good for us. And there are many ways to do it: classical breeding and biofortification. And I think Dr. Bansal also talked about gene editing. Gene editing is the easiest way and very precise way to go and tinker the genes which are involved in biofortification. Just to give an example, we have golden banana, which is not only golden in color but golden in quality as well. It is rich in vitamin A. And we have done all the calculation where we say the half a banana is good enough to take care of your daily requirement. So it is good for babies, good for mothers. So many such examples, many such research is going on. Time is the testing point for that.
Thank you. I'll request Dr. Soumya, food, nutrition, health, no one better than her to tell us. Of course, you'll have to ignore these samosas that you all got for tea and the food you're going to eat now. So Soumya, over to you. Can we have a mic here, please?
You can come here.
Yes. I think very shortly again, my father used to say agricultural remedies for nutritional maladies. And that was where the concept of the genetic gardens and all came from, no? So in different parts of India, is to say, why don't you analyze what are the deficiencies that people are facing? In some places, it's more of iron or zinc. And I think all the soil and, definitely having an impact, I think, on the nutritional content. I'm not aware of research in India that has looked at nutritional profiling of the various yield, the seeds we are releasing, whether they are hybrids or traditional varieties. I think we need more in-depth research on that to look not only at yield, but at the nutritional properties of the varieties. And then you have to have a balanced meal. You have to have a plate that is diverse. That is reduced. I think move to ultra-processed foods, ready-to-eat foods. We are losing out on the fresh foods that we used to eat, that grandmothers used to prepare. So a lot of awareness is also needed. Nutrition literacy is needed. But eventually, I think culture and horticulture, we have to grow and supply the healthy foods which are affordable and accessible to people.
Thank you, Dr. Soumya, because this was an important point. And in fact, I'll just elaborate in a minute what you said about the Nutri Gardens, because you had championed it and you were DG ICMR at that time. And with DBT, we had taken this forward. I think the whole concept is what has been said and what Soumya said, that how do you actually bring in the awareness of the nutrition part of it, so that, and most of it gets done at the, when the women get involved, because that's really where, and what we have done is got them to grow in their backyards the right vegetables, so that when they eat the meal, they know what the balanced diet is. And in fact, we've gone a step further in the Department of Biotechnology under one of our Gates Foundation program. We had actually set up these villages where we brought in a franchisee. So these women would actually grow, and we had done it with one organization where they would grow the vegetables, package them into the exact quantities in which they were required, and then through that franchisee they would go. So I think there are many ways. A lot is being done, but we obviously cannot achieve. So thank you very much for a very, very interesting discussion. I'll call upon Dr. John and the floor is yours now, to thank all the speakers, but also invite everyone for lunch after that. So over to you, Dr. John. Thank you very much. But please give a big round of applause to all our speakers.
I've been kind of boxed into a difficult situation, asking closing remarks and vote of thanks. Let me look at the official part of it, and let me say the vote of thanks, first and foremost, to the India International Center for hosting this. In fact, I'm privileged that it came through a suggestion of mine at the same dais when we had the condolence meeting for Dr. Swaminathan, we said that IIC and MSSRF should initiate a continuous series of discussions. I'm privileged Renu has taken it forward, given it flesh and blood, and both you have done it at MSSRF. Then, of course, we have to thank Dr. Shrivastava and all others who have made this happen. Trilochan, Dr. Trilochan Mohapatra, your talk was incredible. And I'm sure that that has raised a number of questions, and that's how it is going to be. We need to find solutions. We need to find answers to the questions that are raised. And I must say that the talks by Dr. Sanjay Kumar, Dr. Srinivas Rao, Dr. K.C. Bansal, and Ashwani Pareek again have raised very important questions. I believe as a sequel to this one, we will have some sort of a record of discussions, or maybe, as Renu mentioned, a Delhi declaration that will come in due course. And once again, thanking Dr. Madhura Swaminathan, Soumya Swaminathan, illustrious daughters of a legendary father. And my interactions with Dr. Swaminathan have been on many occasions personal. I was overawed when he visited my laboratory in 1981, and he followed it up with a letter. He was Deputy Chairman, Planning Commission. I worked with him in DBT for many years. I worked with him in the World Fish CGIAR, and I've seen him lead the global campaign Fish for All. Incidentally, India has done tremendously well in aquaculture, and the gift tilapia, which was developed by World Fish, I was part of that, is introduced into India. So those are things which have happened. Now, coming to the larger questions, what are the thoughts that come from this? One point that I would like to bring to your kind attention is that Dr. Swaminathan's role at the international level, his contributions to the international development, whether it's CGIAR, whether it's similar organizations, whether it's ICGB, ICRSAT, and all those things, are less known compared to the Green Revolution and its implications. The good and the bad, both are known. But his contribution to international diplomacy is less known. And India has a duty to make sure that the message that he conveyed gets across to Africa. I remember the lecture, Millennium Lecture by Jeffrey Sachs at MSSRF, 2006 or 2007, where he said, if Africa had listened to what Dr. Swaminathan said 20 years ago, Africa would not be in this condition. I mean, and many of the things are relevant even today, whether it's the creation of the Svalbard Gene Bank or the number of programs that he has initiated. So I would suggest, as a follow-up of this, that MSSRF and IIC should think in terms of creating 5 chairs in 5 universities. 3 of them should be in agricultural universities. 2 of them should be in general universities. And I feel that there should be management techniques which come out through his various actions which he has initiated. One of them should be exclusively on focusing on international contribution, particularly what is the relevance of his actions to Africa. I feel one of those chairs could be hosted at JNU, and funding for these things should come from the World Bank or any other international agency. I would suggest creation of 5 chairs. Kindly consider this as a follow-up so that they remain as a message for continuing the dissemination of information. Otherwise, many of what we discuss remains and it just goes away. Whereas if you could involve the students, I used to regularly participate in the Youth Science Congress. I don't know how it is. I've not been in touch for quite some time. But those are the things that he was talking about to propagate his love for science and bring them to children. He talks of Evergreen revolution. I feel that he is an ever relevant man and his messages are relevant to society forever. So it is up to us to make sure that the message is conveyed far and wide. And I don't think there could be a better organization than MSSRF to do that. And all of us will be happy to contribute in whatever manner we can. These are some of the thoughts that came into my scheme of things while I was noting down points. And I suppose Renu, I think we could even leave the floor open to people if they have some email suggestions. They could send it across subsequently.
Absolutely.
So that we
So
collate
we can close
everything
it
and
now.
have a form of a Delhi
Thank you.
declaration.
Thank you so much, Dr. John. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
this is in brief that I wanted to say. A big thank you. I shouldn't miss Dr. Puloma Shah. Incidentally, she's the third PhD student of Dr. Swaminathan. She's a regular visitor to IIC, and I'm so glad I don't know others personally, but we are grateful to all those students and all those teachers who've been associated with him. And I've had the special privilege. Pardon? Oh, I'm
Everyone here is
wonderful,
going to stand
wonderful.
up with their
See,
hand because that's our
ma'am, you
association
see the
with
kind of
Professor
support
Swaminathan.
that.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. So there'll be so much to say. Thank you.
Thank you. That's
Thank
a very nice note on which we should conclude. And my personal thanks to all of you for making this happen. And I'm sure this will be leading to many more things. It's not an end point. It's a starting point for many more things. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. What is being suggested is that we can have a group photograph of everybody. I'm sure he's not going to get all the audience, but can I request Dr. Mohapatra and Soumya to please come onto the dais, Soumya, so we can have a group. And then I don't know, आप सबको ले सकेंगे? I don't think कौशल करेंगे. So please keep seated. But Dr. Soumya and Dr. Mohapatra, please come up so that we can have a group of all the speakers here, and then probably we'll move down. And I know they're very efficient. If Dr. Soumya come, Dr. Mohapatra, please come. Come, Soumya. Yeah. We'll move there. If you can come here and see if you can get the entire audience. हम वहाँ चलते हैं. Panoramic view में करके
अलग-अलग लेके जोड़ना पड़ेगा.
जितना भी ले सकते हो आप.
Photoshop.
आप ट्राई कर लीजिए जितना भी आ जाता है.
सर आपका पेन. Yes.